Greetings, fellow Gothamites. Blue Dragon 5 here.
and Rohith Dar.
And Lazerdude.
And we're back. Yet again, we're still celebrating the anniversary for Batman Arkham Asylum with Arkham-Versary, in which we're covering, we're covering each installment of the Arkham series. And, given, we wanted to time it out so, month of Halloween, we talk about the Arkham game that takes place on Halloween, Arkham Knight. So yeah, we're here. So probably some people are probably wondering why aren't you talking about Arkham Origins? Well, again, we're gonna save that for the holidays to kind of coincide there. So you might be a month off in between, but still, trying to be festive about it. It's a big event. The Arkham games left such an indelible mark on the Batman mythos. It feels like we should try and give it its due. And try and basically either that or it's better than just like waiting. On and off, years to be able to talk about. I always figure we make it kind of a big old kind of fun thing, and I can't think of two other people I'd rather have, talking about this game with me than my own personal bat panel we got going on here. Lazerdude, famous for doing the Arkham Week.
Yep.
Rohith
I'm
Dar.
hoping no Joker jumps out and takes me to the asylum this time. But,
No, it's just gonna be Scarecrow this time. You'll be fine.
oh joy.
Yeah, just all your loved ones will be you know terrifying you.
My greatest fear that I'll never get past 2,800 subscribers.
We'll just be by one, but you'll make it. Anyway, so so Arkham Knight, so similar to Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, it was it mirrored the Dark Knight hype. More so, I guess, Dark Knight Rises in this case. It was very
Yes.
much, and I think in many respects, Arkham Knight is kind of the Dark Knight Rises of the Arkham of the Arkham. Well, at least the core Arkham trilogy, which then has kind of been expanded and added to between our Montreal stuff and some things we don't want to name right here. Some revisitings in recent years.
Something squad.
Yeah, something like that.
Justice.
Yeah, you should just throwing names out there right now, but yes. Point being, yes, this
It's
is very.
really weird how the Arkham games and the Dark Knight games feel like in like the same way you feel about all the games is the same way you feel about the movie. The first one is a great introduction to the character, to the world, to the setup and everything. The second one takes it well beyond what you thought was gonna be, blows it up. It's so good, it's so amazing. Everything is what you wanted. And then the third one, it's good in
It's the divisive
parts.
one, you know.
Yeah, divisive individually. There's some amazing things about it, but it wasn't exactly what you
Like
wanted.
it's not bad. It didn't quite stick the landing as we imagined in our mind it would. But that's the thing where it's not a complete slam dunk. It's not bad, but it's dicey. And that's the thing. That's the frustrating thing about it, where you could say it's the perfect trilogy, where it's like it's a really good trilogy, but we may have kind of returned a little bit of Return of the Jedi. By the
There's
third
always
one.
something that when a trilogy like sticks the landing perfectly, that you just feel like so good. It's like when you
Mm-hmm.
walk out of Return of the King or something that you just feel like, oh my gosh, they got everything right. Thank you, thank goodness. I don't have it's like it's and then when you walk out of the movie, it's like, oh, it's close, but it's not quite there. But
Or
Yeah.
or
same
I
with
mean,
same with this.
I think to go along this whole thing about trilogies is I think there's kind of a challenge to do a third entry in a trilogy in the sense because the first entry in a trilogy is all about setting and opening up the world. So there's a novelty and excitement in terms of exploring and introducing to like characters that you fall in love with and whatnot. Second
Mhm.
entry is you take sort of the base assumptions, the logic, the way the world operates, and you subvert or put some stress upon the characters and have them go through some very harrowing, dark experiences. And usually, the third entries in trilogies that do the best they're the ones that, in a way, not go back to the mode of the first entry, but revisit sort of similar themes or ideas from the first entry, but with characters that have gone through the trials and tribulations of the second entry, if that makes sense. Is that it's all about kind of, if you were to look at a trilogy as a complete beginning, middle, end, the end sort of bookends and just reflects upon the beginning, but the characters going through the journey they have are different and thus make different decisions that make the story unique and interesting, and in contrast to where the characters are at the beginning. But oftentimes, I think for third entries and trilogies, the mistake that Pete creatives will do is that they'll just kind of go big, go epic, go on a grander scale, and because of that, that leads to kind of losing the thread on character arcs and journeys. And in certain respects, that's certainly the issue for this game. And in other respects, I think there is some character progression and conclusion of certain arcs that are decently done. But I think the fact this game not having Paul Dini at the writer stage,
Helm.
at the helm, uh, is very evident. Though I think the quality of writing is not so significantly diminished, at least in the sense of character work. I think the plot and the overall progression of story, there is some, diminishing returns.
It feels here's the difference. So again, it is such a shame that what Dini didn't come back for this, and again the reason being is just really ridiculous from what it. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just saying Dini didn't because it sounded funny to me.
Yeah, Dini did. Yeah. So Rocksteady didn't bring Dini back for kind of some silly, ridiculous reasons, and yet again, it just kind of feels like, in the grand scheme of things, DC or Warner Brothers, I guess Warner Brothers more specifically in the grand scheme, feels like yet again it's another slight to Dini. Just he's doing quality work. We just keep shafting the studio, and just kind of success just keep shafting the poor guy because he's a freelancer. So essentially, the way Dini's been quoted as to responding, like, because everyone's asking, why the heck didn't you come back? Well, the answer was, he was open to coming back, but it was, they basically, I guess reading between the lines, they were getting a little big for their britches, and it's like, well, it's going to take time to really develop this, and we think we know what we're doing, and they basically suggested, well, if you have other work waiting for you, should probably go work on that. That's the thing. It just feels like development time, the freelance, is basically sounds like he wanted to come back, but there wasn't really like an invite. We need you, Dini, come back, which in itself is I think is a little insulting to him. Plus I think it's unspoken, but I think the thing is the DLC with Harley Quinn's Revenge, I think, may have soured things a little bit. Just the fact they did that without him. I think there's a little bit of like the whole commercial business of video.
Yeah, it's his character that he made up. Like imagine you have added so much to the Batman mythos, but the one major thing that everyone knows you for is you made the character of Harley Quinn one of, if not the most popular, newest character that's been made in comic books, and they make a DLC and then they don't invite him. Don't invite you created the character and you don't even get a boo. How do you do?
And especially when Harley Quinn's Revenge at least was marketed as Harley Quinn going on a particular path, and with the whole fake pregnancy scare and all that, it's really disconcerting from that point how Paul D was just kind of put aside. And it seems like for me, Rocksteady just felt that the success of the games was a large part because of the studio itself, with Sefton Hill and all that stuff. And that's not to say they weren't responsible for the success, but at the same token, the moments that are defining in gamers' minds, the iconic line deliveries, the story beats that resonate throughout the first two games, all stem from Paul Dini having a great sense of character, a great sense of theme, and a great way of aligning the two to make an engaging entertaining, and enlightening experience.
Now, do we know, was this still generally what Dini was building to?
Well,
Like, I don't know what his plans were on the Arkham Knight itself and everything like that, but we did have hints of a Scarecrow up to something in Arkham City. We did have Azrael, I guess, was also hinted at, but like the Joker blood thing plays a big part in Arkham Knight. How much of this was taken from his original ideas, and how
well,
much of this was just the new guys doing what they wanted?
I can tell you what's been speculated. I can't say it's 100% confirmed, but this is what the word on the street's always been about what Dini's vision for the game was, at least the little bits that we had. Yes, thank you, Jacob. Yes, it wasn't. Yes, Dini wasn't the only writer on there. You got to remember, Dini was new to writing video games, which is the reason he took it on in the first place. It was the challenge, and the idea is like, Dini loves the characters. Like if he's, if they like offer it to him, he's gonna take it. But that's the thing. So many times, he's been offered things, but he's also been burned. Like the Zatanna movie, for example. He loves that character, but he knew better than to get mixed up with Hollywood because it's always like, they're always going to like shelve the project or they're going to change it irrevocably. It's just going to not be his baby anymore versus the freedom he had in television and freelancing and being, eventually executive producers on the shows and everything. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have that, that control or that kind of like importance in, in the room on it. And again, I love that Dini's not bitter about anything too. I mean, Dini's very cavalier in kind of like in a good way about. He's like, I had fun. I worked on the characters I like, and they went a different way. But it's like, he created Harley Quinn, but he doesn't own Harley Quinn. He knows that.
He doesn't go all Alan Moore on this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like Alan Moore has sort of different reasonings for why he's like the way he is, but I think
absolutely. I'm just making a joke. I don't.
No. I don't want Alan Moore to curse this retrospective podcast, and that man's a wizard. I do not want to encourage that.
Anyway, so Dini's plans. Here's what we know. Okay, so the word on the street is that Dini was going to have his main plot was going to be Scarecrow. Basically, the Scarecrow stuff probably would have been what we end up having here. It would have been Scarecrow, and because we did set that up, as Lazerdude pointed, after all the Easter eggs in Arkham City and everything, Scarecrow was coming back. And we did set up Hush. So the word is that it was going to be Scarecrow and Hush as like basically in lieu of Jason, the lieu of the Arkham Knight and everything. We were going to have Hush. And, of course, Dini has worked with Hush, and he's famous for kind of bringing back Hush after the initial Hush story and doing some pretty good stuff there with Heart of Hush and everything.
Heart of Hush is probably the best the character's ever been utilized.
Exactly. So that's essentially, so Dini has like kind of a strength in writing Hush, and he definitely had some build-up there with the side quest stuff. So the presumption is that would have been the role. He's going after Bruce Wayne, he's going after Batman, and then we have Azrael probably kind of feeding into things. Whether Azrael himself would have been the Arkham Knight. Now, mind you, I don't think Dini had the name Arkham Knight ready or anything. I don't think that was like. I think that was something the game developers brought to the table. And the game writers kind of had in their corner. So basically, the game writers. Mind you, this might sound a little more like I'm playing the. I'm putting Rocksteady in kind of a negative light here, but it does feel like we got Jeff Johns in on the writing process. He wasn't really involved in the writing, but he was involved in the plotting. And with that in mind, it feels like that was like, okay, we lost Dini, but we got to give him a different comic name. We got to give him a different comic talent so they'll get off our backs about the Dini thing. Jeff Johns. There you go. What's Jeff Johns going to do? He's going to say, use that character from the comic. Okay, that's Jeff's contribution, everybody.
He did it. He did it.
What's funny about here's the thing. At the time, I think it wasn't a bad idea to bring on Jeff Johns in a consulting role because he did do Batman Earth 1, 1 and 3. And I think, and for the most, and I would say as someone that, is a big Batman fan, as obviously anyone else here, Jeff Johns does a really interesting and unique take on Batman, and I think it would have been worthwhile to get his input. I think the way things panned out, it's kind of funny that the plans, at least if we were to take what was on the street is true, it went from Hush to Jason Todd, and it's kind of like the inverse of what happened in the original Hush storyline.
Yeah,
the people thought it was Jason Todd. that came back as Hush and knows in
Oh my
fact
gosh.
Tom's Elliott. So, and it's kind of funny we're
That's
talking about.
hilarious, Rohit. I never thought of that. It
Really, you
is a
didn't think about
reverse.
that?
It's a reverse Hush, where Hush pretended that Jason Todd was Hush, but now it's instead of it being Hush, it's Jason Todd. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yep.
Yeah,
No, I'm with look. I want to say this. Okay, so Jeff Johns is. He is. I think Jeff Johns is a good writer. I mean, what he's done for the Reverse Flash, I'll be eternally grateful for because that gets us, the Reverse Flash we have in the Flash television series and everything. And his Earth One take is good. I think events have been kind of his weak points, as I'm saying, like getting him in kind of like plotting essentially an event of a game. That's kind of I don't know. It's kind of interesting where I think Jeff Johns kind of sometimes he works really well in a vacuum. Sometimes he has a good idea that then
Did
kind of gets run
Blackest
into the
Night.
what?
He did Blackest Night, and all of his events with Green Lantern were really good.
Okay,
All
look,
I'm
that's
saying.
fair. I guess what I'm looking at is like I think he has really good idea for the events, but when you factor in like like how long the story's going to go on for and like how massive it, like when you turn it into an event, like okay, all these other books have to kind of correlate with it. That's when like we're kind of like we're taking the core story that Jeff Johns has, and then it's like we kind of blow up Flashpoint to an extent where the Flashpoint story is good, but then we have all the other tie-in stuff, which sometimes you'll get a Dark Knights, sorry, not we'll get the Knights of Vengeance thing with with Thomas Wayne Batman. That's great. Then you have a whole bunch of other stuff. It's like okay, we're kind of extending things a little here.
well, it's funny to think about Jason Todd being brought up as the potential villain choice with Jeff Johns' involvement because later down the line he did Jeff Johns did the Three Joker story, and
Mm-hmm.
I will say it was a complete 180 in terms of quality from his Earth One stuff. That honestly, when people talk about DC kind of robbing, going where they should not go with Alan Moore stuff, I think that's much more of an indictment on their part than say Doomsday Clock. But that's neither here nor there. I think I think Jason Todd probably being mentioned by Jeff Johns as idea, it makes sense in my mind at that time period because like only just a decade prior, Jason Todd came back from came back alive from comics with Under the Red Hood. He was some part of you know Grant Morrison's run on the character, and then he had his own series of Red Hood and the Outlaws. So I think it makes sense for at that time Jason Todd being mentioned because he's a character that people at that time liked and had some level of fandom. So, but the way obviously his idea kind of executes, it leaves a lot to be desired, and I think we'll probably get more into that.
Sure. Anyway, yeah, so it sounds like like just in the writing, there were like, it sounded like there were like creative debates based on the whole like the Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC, and this overall it does feel like honestly what I think ultimately happened. I really think the reason they didn't bring back Dini is that Dini really took his time with the first two games because you have like a period of development between like '09 and 2011, where he's taking his time, he's figuring out the games, and also obviously they're figuring out the gameplay and everything. Whereas it feels like some time was taken. Now it feels like to me that they were rushing into the third game because of the massive success of Arkham City, and maybe it's like we don't have time to really wait for Dini, and we kind of want to. If we're going to bring in things like the Batmobile and the fully open world, we got to get on this now. And if Dini's kind of like
It's
getting into,
also possible that they wouldn't have felt as rushed if Origins was better received.
yeah, perhaps there's that because I mean Origins bought them time when they were figuring out like literally the game development of it all, so that did help them
Yeah.
in that regard. But still, there's only so much time they're going to have from that. So it does feel a little bit like they didn't want Dini to take his time as much as he probably did in the first two games, which I think was probably like the big kind of standstill there in terms of like, do we bring him back or do we maybe look in another direction and have somebody not so much write the story but basically kind of like tell us if we're in the right direction, maybe some stuff like basically consult on the story.
Yeah, I think also part of it is that even though like the Arkham Knight came out 4 years after Arkham City, with Arkham Origins, I think there's sort of it feels to me now in retrospect that the fact that Arkham Asylum came out in 2009, 2011 was Arkham City, 2013 is Arkham Origins. It felt like Rocksteady was just kind of stuck in the mindset that like, oh, there has to be a Batman Arkham game every 2 years. And I feel like if they just deviated from that like cycle and just maybe waited another year or two, they could have definitely had a game that, at the very least, felt a little bit more polished than
Yeah.
on story level. Whereas I think on the gameplay level, like they got the formula down, and the fact they were able to innovate and iterate as best as they could within, say, a 4 year time span, I think this is something where, so even though the story I would say is the weakest of the three core Arkham games, in terms of gameplay, it clears every other Arkham game out of the water.
Oh,
Well, and that's the thing. That's
absolutely.
because they've been building, and also the big thing again, the recurring theme with the Arkham games for me is I keep having to upgrade the game system because I had PlayStation 2, and then the Arkham Asylum comes out. I gotta get the PS3. Then Arkham Knight comes out. I gotta get the PS4. But man, when you got it though, and you saw that opening, it's like, wow, they really put money into this. They really put time and effort
It
into
was like
this.
one of the first things on the new gen console, and it still is some of the looks of the graphics is look so
Hmm.
much better than some of the newer AAA games that are coming out now.
Yeah, it's impressive, and
Yeah.
it's there was a marketing push with this too. I mean, here's the thing: overall, with this with the PS4 and with everything that work went into it, just knowing what they had on their hands is after Arkham City, you know. I remember, like, you had like had some really great marketing with the whole like "Be the Batman" campaign, and we had like we had saw like this great live action like teaser where you had like these average Joes. They kind of I was always impressed with this because it kind of economized like the theme of the games and just the theme of like of who Batman is and what he's trying to do, the mission as it were. Where it was like you see like crime going on in a city, presumably Gotham. You have like these average Joes, but also in different fields. You have like just an average Joe, like in an alley about to be mugged or seeing a guy get mugged. You got like a basketball player. You got like a firefighter, and then you have like a guy on a subway, and they're all kind of inspired and kind of being their own Batman. Where it's like, be courageous, be feared, be the Batman. Again, there was a push for this. They knew
Okay,
they knew what they
Mom,
had.
Dad, come with me in this alley. I sure hope nothing terrible happens to me.
The biggest memorable piece of marketing for this game was definitely the in cinematic trailer, where the whole Thomas Wayne reading of his will is such a great idea to permeate throughout that trailer. As Bruce is putting on his Batman costume, and it's like, oh, there's like a level of urgency, a level of theatricality, and honestly, if nothing else, if there's any one of the few takeaways for people who have been following along in this Arkham-Versary, Rocksteady knew how to market a video game like no other company. Maybe
Mhm.
outside of, say, Halo and Gears of War, maybe Mass Effect to a certain degree. This is just prime hype building. And I will always feel nostalgic for the cinematic trailers and just the overall, momentum that's built up for each game released.
And I,
You
I
know what
want to
I
piggy,
give? Oh, you go ahead.
I want to piggyback off that real quick. The point I was kind of searching for was exactly what you're kind of circling, Rohit, where this might be the most cinematic of the Arkham games, and we've been building off that since each game is progressively getting more and more cinematic, and like just based on the marketing and just the opening of the game and like how we open it, it just feels like it's kind of like it's very movie like, and it's just I don't know. I just like that it's how cinematic it feels, and it
It's
feels like an event as we're approaching the finale.
it's as the kids say, as the Zoomers say, it's got aura, and I say that unironically, without any reservation. There is just a feeling that the people who made these cinematic trailers, they got what Batman is, and they're able to do something. It gives me sort of. Do you all remember the Beowulf movie from 2007?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
I am
and
Ripper,
yeah,
Slasher, Tear. Continue.
I think I remember for a while, like a few years after that movie came out, there was always like some people talk about like, oh, imagine if we had like these kind of cinematics for like superhero stuff or whatnot. And seeing those trailers, it's I always kind of there's always a part of me in the back of my mind. It's like imagine an entire Batman movie that's like this cinematically. um, the momentum, the physics, all of that stuff, and it still carries on. Would say the Injustice games to a certain extent, but the Arkham game cinematics, that's as fun as just playing the games, like just watching
Yeah.
compilations, just highlighting like certain gifs and all that. It's
Yeah, it just reminds you of like the Knights of the Old Republic trailers, where you just like,
yeah,
wait, why isn't this just a trailer? Make this a feature. I want
yes.
to keep watching.
Hmm.
Yep. Okay, so I want to let's springboard off of that into the actual game itself. So the opening had me hooked so much. Here's the thing, I love Sinatra. I love the fact that we opened with "I've Got You Under My Skin" with the Joker's cremation, which is such a great move. Plus, it kind of like coupled with that great tie-in comic they did with Batman Endgame, where we see the actual cremation of the Joker's body. It's kind of like it also
Yeah.
kind of built up things. Like, again, this was made, mind you, they did this kind of like way before we had, like, this wasn't like a tie-in specifically to Arkham Knight. This is like an epilogue for Arkham City, and I love that we kind of somewhat built from that, and also we did revisit Arkham Asylum a bit, in
Hmm.
that. So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
I really appreciated we start off in the first person perspective and just kind of harkening back to Arkham Asylum, where we saw, the first person perspective through Batman, and just having that with just a regular cop, you just kind of like, okay, this is a very interesting start for this game. It's on a Halloween, and you're just kind of waiting for the shit hits the fan.
Mm-hmm.
He never got his apple pie or whatever he ordered.
Well, no.
I
He
thought,
didn't get apple. He got breakfast. Remember, he got hotcakes and bacon. Don't tell the
right,
wife.
right.
But yeah.
You know
But
what?
yeah. So we have the Go on.
I was gonna say this in the advertising. I appreciate this game for not spoiling the Joker twist of it all. Because look, Scarecrow is great, and having this new character, the Arkham Knight, adds a layer of mystery. I'm using air quotes. We all knew who it was. But the Joker being back inside Batman's mind is an amazing twist, and I just give the game developers credit for not plastering, "Oh, the Joker's back, but how?" In the advertising or in anything like that.
They went to great efforts to hide Mark Hamill's involvement in the game, by the way, because Hamill made a big deal about a possible retirement after Arkham City, given the Joker's death. So he was not. It was kept under wraps.
Yeah, and
And plus,
I'm
you have Arkham Origins, so which then kind of throws people off the scent. So yeah.
yeah, no, so I just appreciate the game developers for putting the game ahead of the marketing. Because like you're the third in this, big trilogy. Like you don't need to that it's like Endgame. Did you really even need that much advertisement? No, everyone's gonna go see it.
Yep. Oh yeah. Do you want to talk about the Scarecrow or the Joker first here?
Good with
Well,
Scarecrow.
yeah.
All right, so Scarecrow this time around is played by the wonderful John Noble, and I do still find it so amusing that we kind of parallel the animated series. Again, if the Arkham games are basically the PG iteration, the PG-13 iteration of Batman the Animated Series, or at least for the next generation, in this sense, Arkham Knight, we're at a point where it's kind of the new Batman Adventures, in which we have the revamped version of the Scarecrow, where it looks like kind of the cut down corpse, it looks like barely there's like a human being under that costume, which is kind of what we have with the Scarecrow. The idea being, and I love that it's in universe, it's subtle, it's there, and we do mention it, I think, at least once. The idea is, if you look at the Scarecrow's design, you'll see like he has braces and stuff on his arms and legs, and if you look on, he has this really gnarled, nasty looking mask. That's him. That's him surviving that Killer Croc attack. So he's probably
Mm-hmm.
a little disfigured under there, and also like some bones are probably not healing right. And yeah, so it's just great that he's basically been traumatized, and he kind of blames Batman for that. Basically with the whole Arkham Asylum, kind of like inmates taking over the asylum plan, going belly up. He's had like this new lease on life. He's been planning since the first game this big revenge plot, and I love that. That's that's great. That I love it when we can kind of take a redesign and we can kind of apply like a logic or a story reason for it here, where he now has this new unbeatable fear toxin that can, even if you run a gas mask, it's going to get you.
What I appreciate of the design of Scarecrow, while I do understand somewhat the new Batman Adventures comparison, I will say that the Arkham Knight version of Scarecrow isn't as radical a departure looks wise as compared to say DCAU version. Like you went from a scarecrow to basically like a corpse creature with like a noose around his neck. At least
Yeah.
with at least with the Arkham version, you have Scarecrow still look like a scarecrow. If anything, it kind of just looks like a more refined version of his design. Like he still has the scarecrow, mask. He has the hood that he had from the first game. It's just what's an interesting and I think an appreciative design choice for the Arkham Knight version of Scarecrow is the fact you can see his eyes. Um,
Mm.
and
He has
that
like the one dead eye too. He's like,
yeah, and the fact that you have John Noble playing Scarecrow of all characters. When I heard his voice in the trailer and just throughout the game, he has such a level of gravitas and menace. Now I know some people will quibble or say that Scarecrow isn't supposed to have this kind of voice or tenor, and for
he's a
me,
doctor.
yeah, but I think John Noble, just the way he delivers, this game makes Scarecrow out to be the big bad mastermind that has this kind of ability to
Mhm.
inspire fear beyond just utilizing the fear gas in causing hallucinations or induced fear. It's the ability to really just kind of pierce through the soul, and the way he has his monologues, and John Noble just delivers it every time. And it really, at the very least, I appreciate that Scarecrow, if nothing else, has a level of gravity to his performance. It's He's never really undermined in terms of being made to a joke or made feeble minded. I think
Mhm.
the way his character ends in the game, it still is kind of a fitting karmic justice, but the whole time there is a level of menace to John Noble, and I think that's something that goes without saying. I think it's one of the better parts of this game. For all
I
the flaws I have, John Noble Scarecrow is like no flaws.
I think the reason Scarecrow works so well in this game, and just in our story, like for the story that's working in this game, is that Scarecrow as a character, with his plot in this game, is that he's making Gotham not afraid of Batman anymore, which is kind of a great antithesis for that character. The antithesis to Batman's mission. He's the superstitious and cowardly, and he's kind of taking a villain who would probably spit in the face of that credo for Batman. It just makes a lot of sense, and it's a really heady idea. The Scarecrow, like his revenge against Batman, is I'm gonna make Gotham completely unafraid of you. I'm gonna take away like the biggest tool in your arsenal away from you for making me feel afraid in the first game.
Yeah, the voice is very good, very menacing. The design is on point and everything. The one thing that I'll take away is that the Joker was a better character for like constantly taunting you throughout the games. Like
Mm.
Scarecrow goes on the intercom to the city every now and then, and he'll have some big grandiose speech going
It
on.
gets a little
But they're
old
all
after a
kind of
while.
generic about fear and blah blah blah. It's not like it's not an ideal. So it just kind of like runs together after a while, and you barely even pay attention. Where every time Mark Hamill would come on, dun, 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 and would say something, you'd always be like, "Oh, what's Joker gonna say now? What's Joker gonna say now?" Where he's not a very charismatic character as. Unfortunately, you got Mark Hamill to step into that as Joker every now and then will appear as an hallucination. But that is the one thing with his character where I will say, since Joker is super serious in this and he's not as cackling or over the top as he was in Arkham Asylum, he does get a little bit monotonous.
I think also another thing is that you know the way Scarecrow kind of operates, it sort of feels. I mean, as much as I like the performance and whatnot, I will say, and I'll concede on this point, he does feel like a bit of a retread of Hugo Strange to a certain extent.
A little bit.
And that's nothing against like the performance overall. John Noble does great, but I think when he brought up the point about the taunting, and I think about it, it's like, yeah, it's like Joker does better taunting in the games, but even Hugo Strange, when he's kind of doing his menacing taunting, I think the fact is more about, in comparing, say, Hugo Strange to Scarecrow, Hugo Strange kind of has the advantage of knowing, Batman's identity. So whenever he's making threats or making illusions, it's like there's a special connection or a special insight to Bruce that I think really hits home for him and by extension the audience. Whereas Scarecrow, because he doesn't necessarily know who Batman is until the very end, all the taunts are, like you said, it's very generic. It's like, and
it's not personal.
Yeah. And I think it's
with Hugo Strange, you have that moment at the spot where Batman's parents are killed, where he's basically mocking him there, and that makes it feel so much more personal. Where, Scarecrow's just fear and stuff.
And I think also the fact that we have that amazing intro in Arkham City where we see Hugo Strange approach Bruce, and you see the reflection. There's a really great way of introducing a character, like visually. And I think Scarecrow, it's like he's never really out and like having a particularly unique moment with the character, even if it's not Batman. And I think because of that, he's just kind of like, oh, he's just a guy like in the shadows saying his thing, and then bad things happen. But there's never a moment where he makes his presence known and really kind of puts the fear of God or even something worse than God into a character.
So yeah, Scarecrow, he's not like the worst picked as your main antagonist, but unfortunately, he kind of gets sidelined in his own movie or his own video game with the choice to do the Joker thing. You know what? It kind of reminds me of like Malakath in Thor: The Dark World. They have this dark elf guy who's supposed to be like this big villain, but you also include Loki. So then you just like kind of sideline your main villain for the most part to do more Loki stuff.
Or it's kind of like when any X-Men movie has like a non-Magneto villain, and then when the non-Magneto is taken care of, all right, Magneto's gonna do his Magneto thing. No, I think that's just kind
Shut up, Trask! Shut up, Trask! Magneto's lifting a stadium.
Or it's like, all right, we dealt with when in X2 we dealt with Stryker. He's taken care of, and it's like Magneto's like, no, let's just call humans. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
But no, I think like Joker kind of upstaging Scarecrow kind of feeds into a long-standing critique that people have of the games, is that as much as they appreciate the Batman Joker relationship, there is sort of this feeling that the relationship kind of is too overemphasized. It's too given too much attention, and then as a result, Batman's relationships, whether to his supporting characters or even his villains, don't get the same level of reverence and introspection. And I feel like with Paul Dini, with the fact that he killed off the character at the end, I think, not to say I can mind read Paul Dini, but I think there's a part of it where it's like, as if Joker still continues on, he's always going to be like the center of gravity in a room.
Yeah.
And
you couldn't have Scarecrow be the main villain of the game if the Joker's still out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's kind of a funny thing because, like, I feel like all three of these villains are kind of diminished by the other one being there. Like if I'm gonna call him Red Hood, even though he's the Arkham Knight. If they wanted to go the Red Hood route, him kind of working for and with Scarecrow, and I know it's with Scarecrow, but it kind of at times feels like a working for. Like Batman walks right up, and then the Arkham Knight has Batman in his sights, and Scarecrow says not yet, and it's just like, if you're your own boss, fire away if you want to kill him right now.
Yeah,
But yeah, go ahead.
And what he makes even less sense about it is that like Jason, if it's Jason Todd, it's not like, oh, Jason Todd was found or mind washed or manipulated. He's of his own free will and agency. So it's not like the thing where it's like, oh, like a Batman villain has found Jason Todd and molded him and used him as a puppet. He's his own free man, his own free agent, and he has this vendetta against Bruce. And you would think, if anything, Jason should be manipulating Scarecrow. If he's been with Batman for so long, he knows Batman so well, you would think he would use his techniques to corral, and maybe, like, how crazy would it be that the main villain would be someone that was under Batman and use his skills and resources to organize, to lead the villains against Batman?
Yeah, I think there's something with the Arkham Knight before he's revealed is always kind of sounding like more pissed off and angry, and that kind of makes him less threatening because he's always mad that he's losing, or he's always where it's like, you look at the movie Under the Red Hood, and the Red Hood, even when things weren't going well for him, he was always calm. He was always felt like he was in control of the situation.
Yeah, like Jason had good points during that, and
not only was he calm and centered, he just sometimes he also was, because of Jensen Ackles voicing the character. He was a chatty guy. He knew how to like snark, and then like the one line, it's like, you're gonna really get aggressive. You really talk back to the guy with the AK-47. It's just like,
yeah.
Hey, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good,
Sorry,
good. Just making sure. But yeah, I'm with you, Lazerdude. The whole thing. Here's the thing: when we get to the third act, essentially with Jason, he's so whiny during all like the times we basically we stealth attack him and we get him. He's like always like, "Don't touch me!" He's like, "Oh my god, what have we done to him?"
In one respect, I can understand the characterization, because if you're wanting Jason to be someone who's deeply traumatized and is kind of in a bit of arrested development, that characterization makes sense. But at the same time, maybe wanting to be this formidable villain, someone that can really put Batman on his toes, it really cuts against that. The only way that could work in my mind was that if he's kind of putting up this front, and over time the cracks start to appear, because then it's kind of, at least if it were treated like a mystery, you kind of get, the more as time goes on, the more you get a sense of, all right, this character's probably someone I know. But the way it's done, it just feels like they had an idea but didn't have a means of trying to make the idea really work in a fun way. It was just like, oh, it's, what if Jason Todd was a villain? But it's like, well,
here's the thing. I don't even view him as a villain in this, because the writers thought, hey, that really, tragic and dark comic, Death of the Family, where Jason is beaten and then exploded, and dies. What if we went even darker with it? What if we made it even worse, where he's kidnapped for months, it seems, the Joker
6 months.
constantly torturing him every single day until he curses the name of the man who took him in and tried to help him, and then he gets shot in the face. Or maybe he doesn't. I don't remember exactly what happened with that, because Joker. But so Jason throughout most of this is just in victim mode. Like the way that he's like attacking Batman, I don't see that. Like in Under the Red Hood, he's cold and calculated, but he's doing this of his free will because he believes he's taking the Batman method to its rightful extremes, and it's all calculated and cold. And here he's still just in that hate-filled spiral that the Joker put him in, and because of that, he's not really that menacing as a villain.
And Laser, I think you hit it right there, okay? Because Under the Red Hood, he's trying to prove a point. he doesn't have a point to prove here because I think some of this is really some of this is really tempting in terms of like a story from story capacity. For example, if we're going to change up like how we kill off Jason Todd, torturing him for 6 months in Arkham Asylum, I think like essentially the way it's so weird because while I want him to be the Red Hood, in labeling him the Arkham Knight, well, I think it's dumb to kind of make a whole mystery out of that. Basically, the whole thing when they made this game is they said, okay, his name's the Arkham Knight, and he's an original character, which is that was a bold faced lie. So
So you
that's
lied.
stupid. That's stupid. But
The Arkham Knight moniker and mantle is original. That's but I
it's
get
come on, don't get all lawyery on me, Rohith. Come on.
My client has gone under a different name, therefore he is a different character.
Okay, but in all
Is his
seriousness,
surname still Todd?
okay, that notwithstanding, I love the idea if we're gonna recontextualize that character to really fit the Arkham games in is making him the Arkham Knight essentially. That's kind of an interesting way of doing it, where we're gonna take him to the den of madness that we spent so much of these games at, and the fact it was right under Batman's nose, and he finds out after the fact that in an abandoned wing of Arkham, this went on, and it was like through months and months of searching and all the hopelessness. Like that's really like that to me is a really good idea, and then like it also adds like some Batman Beyond Return of the Joker vibes because we went to the abandoned Arkham Asylum in that one, which is it's kind of cool. We basically do that in the third act here too, which is kind of neat. But I guess the idea is we justify the Arkham Knight moniker. The problem is we go the full brainwashing here, kind of like Winter Soldier esque brainwashing here, and because of that, we take a lot of the autonomy, and a lot of like it's such a hard buy that Jason would not want revenge on the guy that tortured and beat him all that time. Which, of course, in killing off the Joker, he can't get that revenge, so we've kind of crippled that character in his points, in large part. So we've kind of taken the venom away from the Cobra, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of an interesting point. I didn't really think of the fact that Jason Todd's like big story. He comes back and his drive is just to say, "Why did you let me die, Bruce?" And Joker's still alive. But
And
with
then
Joker,
we had like
he's
a
like,
whole conspiracy thing of like, okay, they faked his death, so we now make it convoluted. Like he didn't actually die and come back; he faked his death, and it was a Joker plan. But now the Joker's not around.
yeah,
Yeah, but then where was he this entire time? After the fake
Well,
shot
all
to the
the
face.
tie-in comics do tell you what happened, but that's what I'm saying. That we keep adding like it gets convoluted. Like, and he teamed up with Deathstroke for a brief time. That's why Deathstroke's in the
It's like when
game.
Destiny said, "Yeah, there's a story mode, but you have to go online and read books or whatever."
Yeah.
oh no, what actually happened? If you don't mind sharing, Dragon, what
Okay,
happened?
I guess to give you there. So I want to say this very importantly. All the Arkham tie-in comics are rather good. The Dini ones are the best, clearly, but Pete Tomasi, great writer. I love Pete Tomasi. He did the Arkham Knight. The majority of the Arkham Knight core tie-in books were him. Now I don't know if he did the specific the Jason Todd ones, but he did like the main story ones, which basically tell you like here's stuff you don't really see in the game, but it's not necessarily that it's not there. Like Jim Gordon is running for mayor because now we don't have Quincy Sharp around, so he's running for mayor. That's kind of like
Somebody has to.
yeah. So, and we kind of show a little bit towards the very tail end of the whole the Nightfall Protocol thing if you look really carefully. But that's what I'm saying. Subtle, it's in the background, but essentially, you had some cool stuff where you had the Arkham Knight is kind of like he's around while Arkham City is kind of being essentially dismantled. So he's kind of around during that transition period, and he's like Batman's kind of like noticing who's like he's kind of noticing someone's like watching him, kind of a thing. So that was cool. But with Jason Todd, essentially, it's been a while, so bear with me. We see Harley's role in things, where Harley was very key in helping recondition him and doing the whole like she probably helped the Joker in basically kind of brainwashing him and everything. So she gave him the moniker of the Arkham Knight, saying our knight in shining armor, essentially. And basically, he escaped, but it was like kind of permitted by the Joker at a certain point. Like, he eventually, I want to say, I forget when he escaped, but he escaped at a certain point. Then he kind of teamed up with Deathstroke for a while, And then he basically, he was kind of circling the events of Arkham City, which basically is why he was kind of shadowing Batman during that time. But yeah, it's a little all over the place. I'm sorry, Rohit. There's some stuff I'm kind of blanking on in terms of what exactly he did, but essentially he was
Mhm.
he was in Arkham for about roughly 6 months to a year, and then afterwards, he was there was an escape, but then he did have a run in with the Joker when he was alive in Arkham City at some point. Which that's where this is what I'm saying. At a certain point, things get convoluted there, and it's like, okay, well, if he's there during these points, why, he has like some sort of like goodbye confrontation with the Joker, and basically the Joker encourages him to build his own mind. Basically, that's where he gets the idea to have a militia and put on like basically the army version of a Batman costume. Joker gave him that idea before he died, sometime during Arkham City, and then beyond that, he was getting together the militia forces and calling up Deathstroke and doing all this stuff. So he was preparing in the interim since Arkham City. So that's kind of
You know what'd be funny? I was just thinking, you know how in Arkham City, at the very beginning of the game, you can look up in the sky and you can see Azrael on top of a building looking at you?
Yep.
It'd be so funny if you could zoom in a little bit more and like Red Hood is in a building behind Azrael.
There you go.
Or Arkham Knight is, I guess. And just be like,
Yep.
wait
That's
a minute,
the idea.
what?
No. When you zoom in like, or if you have the option to zoom in the Harley Quinn's Revenge, you just see Jason Todd just like jumping in joy and just like pumping his fist up in the air. It's like, you got him.
But that's the thing. We kind of painted like this version really liked the Joker. Because again, he was convinced Batman did this to him, and it just doesn't read well. And earlier on, it's like, I want to kill him, kill him, kill him. Like, well, we're okay. So if he's Jason Todd, he just wants to blindly kill him. Like,
Yeah, because
doesn't
he's just
here's the
a
he won't
victim. That's
blindly
all
kill
he
it.
is in this game. He's not his own. Like, the biggest reason why Jason Todd works as a villain in my mind instead of a hero, which they always go back and forth. One issue is like, I'm changing my ways. The next issue, oops, I killed again. Like that's basically Jason Todd's perpetual thing in comic books. But I think he works better as a villain, but a villain that has chosen his path. Here, he hasn't chosen anything. He's still brainwashed, has no real drive of his own. And that's why, like, it takes him away as a main villain. It takes that away. Scarecrow is overstaged by Joker, but Joker's not even really there. He's a figment of Batman's imagination. So even he is diminished a little bit.
Okay, so I want to talk about kind of the Gordon family here for a bit. So one, I love I love Jonathan Banks in the role of Commissioner Gordon. I think we finally took a few tries. No, man, the Origins version is as good as well. But I'm saying I think Jonathan Banks, is kind of the best kind of stunt casting. That stunt, he's a good actor. Best kind of casting that we've had with Gordon in these games. And I love Tom Kane, but I'm saying this is like we've had a fully developed Gordon. He looks very kind of Jim Lee esque, with kind of like he looks like Gordon looked in Hush,
Which is fitting in
Yeah.
light of.
Yeah.
No, but I along those lines, Dragon. What I appreciate about Jonathan Banks' performance as Jim Gordon is that he plays a grizzled cop, which obviously he's got plenty of experience in playing Mike Armitrod in Breaking
Mm-hmm.
Bad and Better Call Saul. It's very just natural for him, and I think also whenever he has dialogue with Kevin Conroy, it feels like he pairs that really well with Kevin Conroy. Their dynamic is maybe not exactly one-to-one the dynamic with in the Batman animated series, but it definitely comes close, if not just good enough, like good on its own in its own unique way.
And that's I'm gonna highlight this because no one ever talks about this kind of thing. It is really special because Connery hasn't really had a Gordon interact with since Bob Hastings. If you ever think about it, we never really have like Conroy's Batman interact with a Commissioner Gordon. And Jonathan Banks, you're going to find somebody to kind of fill that role. I mean, you can't do really any better than him, short of Bryan Cranston, like in Batman Year One, which I do love that, by the way. I love that we have a great kind of like young Gordon and Cranston. We have kind of a great traditional Gordon, Jonathan Banks.
We're going to, if we have a Jim Gordon Year One story where it's like a young officer, he'll be voiced by Aaron Paul.
No joke. Honestly, Aaron Paul would be a really good Jason Todd, like the Red Hood specifically. I don't know, it'd be kind of neat.
Only if Bryan Cranston gets to play older Batman.
There you go. Okay, so okay, getting back on point. So I love that we also kind of here's something we never really did in the Arkham games. Where there's a lot of bucket list kind of stuff in this game. For example, the Batmobile. We have the full open world, and also we have a few other things with Batman that we weren't able to really do because just the story, the setting at the asylum and everything. We have what, for me, the thing I always love in a Batman story, we have the Batman Gordon rooftop scene with a bat signal. That's how we open the game.
And we also have. Oh, you go ahead.
We also have the Bat entrance where he scares Gordon, and we do it via POV with Gordon.
Another thing
Get
that
to
is
see
also
Barbara for the first time.
Yeah, you're right. We do.
yeah. Basically, the bucket list is just be able to play members of the Bat family in DLC.
Well, I guess actually we see Barbara in Origins, but anyway. Now, here's the thing. I was gonna say like one of the supporting characters sort of things that I found I liked like we got Aaron Cash back at the police station, and even though he's an officer without an arm, I mean he's still
Well, without a
doing his
hand.
best. He's still fighting it. I always love to see that. I love that character grows as the franchise grows. He's just a guard at it, and then he's moved on till he's an officer, like undercover agent for Gordon, and now he's just an officer in his unit, and I love that sort of progression with the
Yeah.
character.
I think for anyone that's been playing these games from Arkham Asylum to now, you grew up with Batman, you grew up with Joker in these games, but you also like Aaron Cash being in all three games, Asylum, City, and Night. It's sort of like he's kind of a fun supporting character that he doesn't play a huge part in the story, but just his presence, it's like like he's kind of like the Phil Coulson or the Wong or even the Oscar Martinez of the Arkham games, like a fun side character that the audience will be like, oh, I like that guy, and and I think that's kind of where having a long form story and having certain characters that flow in and out of said story, that's sort of the payoff in terms of that investment as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any other doctors or other side characters that make another appearance. Is there?
I mean, I think Jack Ryder might be in all. I think Jack Ryder might be like an Easter egg.
Yeah, well, he's in like the
him.
helicopter in the first one. He's in the asylum, and then he's somewhere in this one. I don't remember. Oh wait, he gets mixed
he's
up
Deacon
with
Blackfire tries to kill him. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
I still don't know if he was ever the trickster.
The creeper.
Creeper.
The creeper. Sorry, I was like, wait, no, not the trickster. That's different. Mark Hamill.
Just remember, Lazerdude's not Condiment King.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he's not King Tut either.
No, he's not. Anyway, but here's the I do like that what we do here with Gordon is that we really challenge their friendship in kind of a nod to Over the Edge, in which we seemingly we lose Batgirl, we lose Barbara, and that very much is a big rift in their friendship, which then we amend later in a really memorable way. But yes, I mean, speaking of which, I mean, Oracle's death, at least her in quotes death, is very, very tragic and horrific too. Where she's kidnapped by the Arkham Knight. The whole Ace Chemical thing was like a ruse just to leave her unprotected, and basically she's put into a chamber, doused with fear toxin. Looking at Batman, she kills herself to get away from him.
Did anybody buy it? I didn't buy it.
With it being the last game. Here's the thing. I bought it in that I didn't think how it could be faked. I didn't realize, well, yeah, he could just be Batman at this point has been doused with the fear toxin. He could have just imagined it. I mean, I guess I was thinking because he's already hallucinating everything else. I didn't. It really should have occurred to me, but I was surprised that she was alive, just given the finality and given how much we said, oh man, she's so dead.
That's kind of the thing. I felt like I don't think she's dead, But if she's not dead, it's kind of a cop out because I feel like Batman should be, if not be able to tell, like, isn't Alfred watching at home? Shouldn't
Well,
he
no.
be able to see what's going
Alfred
on?
can't see. No, Alfred can't see anything. He's hearing it, and he's getting like news broadcasting, but he's not seeing it.
Okay.
But it's not Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond, you have the cowl cam. He doesn't have a cowl cam. Just there's the radio.
Man,
He's
I
hearing
feel
like
that's an
Bruce Wayne
oversight on
react to
Bruce's
everything.
part.
What?
I feel like it's an oversight on Bruce's part for Alfred not to be able to see what Bruce is
That's
seeing.
true. If he, but then again, if he did, like the game would be over in like 5 minutes. Like, no, sir, that's not
Yeah,
real.
that's the thing. It's like the fact that the only way for us to not know whether it's real or not is because there's Alfred can't see, and he's connected to Bruce, and he can probably see like Bruce's heart rate or whatever.
Mhm,
And then you have the detective vision. It's like, okay, like honestly, I think the way it would have worked is like I don't know if this would have been bold enough move on Rocksteady's part. Like maybe they could have messed with the tech, and then maybe Bruce is like for parts of the game he's kind of low tech, or even not be able to communicate with Alfred at all. I think that would have at least given some level like, okay, like there's no independent way to verify what Bruce is seeing, so we're just have to rely on his senses and hope that like what
Just
he's
have
seeing.
a thug that has a jammer on in the other room.
Well, so that's something we should. Let's talk about that. The upgrades and the obstacles that we have. So again, the upgrades, I love putting them in the new Batsuit. I love you feel extra strong and powerful when we put them in the new Batsuit, right?
Oh, fear takedowns are so satisfying.
Yeah, because you have those. You have like the disruptors. Again, I love that in building on the continuity. He's gone through these Arkham games and he's basically been taking a lot of the improvised technology and he's built it into like full on. Like the disruptor was something kind of found in the moment. They turned to basically kind of a combination of that and like the sticky bomb gun and or the EMP gun from Dark Knight Rises essentially. And basically that's the the weapon disruptor, which is great.
Yeah. At the same time, though, like while it is cool for Batman to have basically like a suit of armor on him, it does kind of like I feel sort of nostalgic for Asylum City where he's kind of basically obviously there's some level of armor underneath his outfit, but it still
You prefer
feels
cloth to armor?
yes. I think for armor, my thing
we shoot him between the plates though. It was a really cool moment.
No, I get this cool moment. I just think for me aesthetically, it's like when I'm looking at it, it's like I don't see like Batman. I do see Batman in a sense, but it's just sort of I'm focused less on the overall look of Batman, and because it's so armored and so like high tech. You see all the lines and segments. Like it feels less like a Batman outfit and more like an Iron Man outfit that's kind of downgraded to like looking like a cloth or a costume in a sense.
I mean, maybe I would argue that the Nolan Batsuit, which I mean that's what I'm saying. This is basically kind of a more. This is essentially the Nolan Batsuit, only it moves a lot easier. That's essentially what this is, if you really look at it.
I get that, but my counter to that would be that at least with Nolan, the precedent was set from Begins that Batman has like a more armored look to it, and it fits with that world. Whereas for the Arkham games, they're not. I mean, they're gritty and grounded in a sense, but they're not like adhering to realism. They have fantastic.
Well, here's the thing. This was the armor era for Batman. New 52 happened and put him in more Batman armor. That was like not too long before this.
Well, honestly, it's less the armor, Rohit. I think it's more the colors. Basically, we had an excuse to put him in all black, kind of like our first introduction to a dark Batman. In media with '89. I think it's kind of what it's indicative of. Like we're putting him in all black, and which is also then kind of connected to Nolan stuff. We're so used, the comic fans are so used to him in gray, and we've gotten that for 2 games now, and then plus Arkham Origins, and now we've kind of dipped it again. This game feeling as cinematic as is, we're kind of aping on the movies in a sense. I don't know.
Well, and also for me, it's like the thing is that it always felt a little much for when Bruce puts on the Batman armor, the latest look for the Arkham Knight. there's like shots kind of emphasizing like it's kind of like looking the Batman costume like it's like a revved up car. You see all the engines moving, the plates moving, and it's like I feel it takes away from me for him being like this dark Avenger or like a ninja or whatever. And it's like, okay, like that and plus like the Batmobile, it's like, okay, I think we're going a little too high tech with Batman.
Okay, so we should talk about that, by the way.
Yeah.
The Batmobile was the one thing you saw in every single review of all the other Arkham games. Is like, it's perfect. We just need the Batmobile. Everyone said that. We just need the Batmobile. And then
what do
we
we
got
do in
it.
the third
and you know
one?
what?
We give him the game. We give him the Batmobile.
And it was
And
a
you know what?
monkey
We all
spot
sound like
situation.
that spoiled child who's like,
Mhm.
cream, cream. Then you give him ice cream, like, what is ice cream? You know, that's what we all sound like. Because the Batmobile's a little bit of a disappointment.
Here's where I come down. I'm sorry, Rohith, you go first. How do you feel about the Batmobile?
The Batmobile and the way it's executed in this game, it's like a monkey paw situation where it's like, oh man, we're so much like Batman. We get to glide around, we get to grapple, we get to fight. I want to be the Batmobile or the Batwing, blah blah blah. And you get on the Batmobile, and the thing is, it's not necessarily the Batmobile itself. It's like it's not like you. It's not hard. It's great to drive if after being able to drive for a while. It's just the overuse and reliance of it to proceed through certain missions, and you've had to transition from just driving like a regular Batmobile to having it be like a tank, and it's just like okay, like when you really think about it, like the Batmobile is one of the best cars in fiction, but how often does the Batmobile, play a prominent role in Batman stories, right? Like you see Batman getting in and out or have like a chase sequence, whatever, but it's not like the
It's a tool to get
Batmobile is.
him to the location.
Yeah.
Unless you're going up against Gearhead, you don't really, the Batmobile's not like needed,
Yeah, and I think oftentimes it's like the more Batman's using the Batmobile and like the tech and overall, it just feels like okay, we went from this dark Avenger that kind of like if he flies in and just kind of glides, kicks into a bad guy or grapples up, down, smoke grenades, all that. It's like, oh, that's this dark Avenger that uses the shadows, uses stealth to have an advantage over his enemies. And this is just like, okay, Batman's just like roaming through the streets. He conveniently has no civilians in his way. All these criminals are just getting knocked by him or they don't die. And like for me, the Batmobile was going to be part of this game. It needed to be used in a way that would make driving the Batmobile fun, which is like, oh, you go on a high speed car chase, and there was a few of those, but it's like the Batmobile was used to basically just do tank battles, and it's like at this point, like these elements take away from what Batman is as a character. And thing is that the best part of Batman being adapted to video game 4 with Arkham Asylum, Arkham City is like this is taking Batman's world and making it work in a video game. Whereas this, I think, with the fact that Paul Dini not being involved, things like Arkham Knight, things like the Batmobile, they're done on the basis of how can
it's a mandate. Like we need this
it's not
versus
really, it's not just a mandate. It's more just like this is how game designers and people who focus on making video games operate and think, and it's less about how does this fit and add to the story, the themes, the overall vibe and atmosphere of the story.
Yeah.
So
You go ahead.
Here's where I come down on the car. So the Batmobile and its actual Batmobile form and how it works. I mean, I think it's really cool. I love the option to drive it around. Plus, we've made Gotham a lot bigger. If we're going the full open world, you don't want to glide around every single place. You could, but you don't have to. Just given like it's a wider scope, because you could glide around all of Arkham City. Arkham City is like a third of the entire city, and I think so. Like the car itself is cool and the high speed chases and stuff like that. And here's my favorite part of the story aspect of the Batmobile. I love how you can rescue and kind of transport people in the back of the Batmobile. Like the little seat comes out and everything. I love that. That's great for me. My favorite thing about Batman is well, he saves people, so that works like gangbusters. I've never seen that before with Batman, so that's great. Now, that
In
said,
the Arkham Asylum, Joker's in the front seat. That's a terrible idea.
yeah, so it's a great solution to that.
Exactly.
So that's great because traditionally the Batmobile is like a one seater. Like traditionally it's a 1 or 2 seater at most. So it's like how do you circumvent that, especially if you have to other people to transport? Well, there you go. Anyway, so on the flip side, you have it makes sense given Batman Begins in the Dark Knight, you would have a tank capability for the Batmobile. But that's the thing. It bothers me that I can't like go down the street and take a joyride in the Batmobile without a tank battle. Okay, that irks me. Okay, it's the fact that you need the car in levels so much. It's like the Batmobile shouldn't be at Ace Chemicals. Ace Chemicals should be we drive up there and we get out of the car and we go into Ace Chemicals. I don't need like the reasons for the car to be in the buildings.
Or even just like glide launch from the Batmobile. That's no, but here's the thing. Like, I just thought of this is that not it's when we talked about how these Arkham games they're like the PG-13 or the grown up mature version of Batman series.
Mhm.
Like I think back to the Batmobile. The Batmobile when it's used for fun car chase sequences or when you're in the Batmobile, it's like Batman can talk to characters and joke or have jokes and have dialogue like exposition, what have you. None of that happens when Batman is a Batmobile. When it's used just for gameplay or going from point A to point B. And I'll have this one complaint, and I feel like you two will agree with me in this. It is very annoying that when we have Batmobile skins, the Batmobile doesn't change the actual like Batmobiles of other entries in the Batman franchise, like Batman '89 or even the '60s Batman, if it's not in a racing context. And it's like if I can look like '60s Batman or Michael Keaton Batman, I want to drive the '60s Batmobile or the '89 Batmobile out on the streets doing regular Batman stuff, not in a race.
I would geek out so much if they had the animated series Batmobile as a skin in that game.
Yeah, and the
But
actual,
here's
not
the
like the
biggest
regular.
thing for me. Here's what really breaks it for me. It breaks the immersion. Because, like, we all know there's nothing more satisfying in any of the Arkham games when you're beating up a group of bad guys and you're getting that combo on. It's getting up 50 times, 60 times, and you're just destroying everybody. And then you end it and everyone's on the ground and you've perfected it perfectly. But if you're outside and there's a group of like 20 bad guys and you have your car, there's no reason to get out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
You just go into battle mode, slightly nudge them, they all shock, fall to the ground, you instantly win. And as Batman, why wouldn't you do that? You're not going to handicap yourself. You're going to do the most effective method, and that's it. And I don't like that I have that as an option.
Yeah.
And also, what kind of breaks it for me is that like we have the Batmobile to do all these like important tasks in the game, and the thing is, you have the Batmobile, but you also have like the Batwing, right? And I'm just thinking, it's like okay, like you have not only do you have like a Batmobile, you have a flying bat. It's like it just for me, it's just like okay, we're going from detective mode. We're going from things that enhance the experience of Batman to where it's less like now. The thing is, the Batmobile in terms of racing around, in terms of tank battles, if it was for any other character, even if it's a non-superhero character, I wouldn't bat an eye. But for Batman, it's like I want to like. There's more fun in just flying and gliding around, and I feel like it's much better to just kind of glide from point A to point B. You're
It's
actually
like giving Spider-Man a car or a bike. You know?
Now Insomniac's going to bring in the Spider-Mobile and Spider-Man 3, and we're all going to suffer for it.
Well, the coolest thing about the Spider-Man is you can actually drive up the buildings.
One big thing. One of my major problems with it, and I don't even remember which one specifically, but it changes one of the buttons. I don't remember if it's for detective vision or for grapple. One of the buttons is changed because now it has to be to call the Batmobile, and it messes me up every time I play this
Oh,
series.
I know where. Yeah, I had that for a while. That was so annoying, and it's like you could just
Yeah, every time I want to do detective mode, I end up calling the dang car.
yeah.
All right, so we got the Batmobile out of our systems there. So when we go to Ace Chemicals, I like that again. It's a little full circle with the it's a little full circle with how we Joker's origin and everything. So it feels appropriate that we actually go there in the last game, especially given the the Red Hood of it all. I like we have like the sacrificial play and then we have the big reveal, which again we've already kind of talked about a bit, but just it is such a great reveal when the Joker shows up, and that to me is like what
I was quoting the line, "Miss me."
yeah, it's great. Just shoots you, and I just love how tense that is. You think Batman's gonna make it in this big sacrificial move, and he kind of is, and then Joker shows up when you least expect him, and he shoots you. It's just, and then we cut to like the whole the Vanessa
Well, that
Studios.
scene is tense enough with the you have to keep it still as you push it in. Like, for some reason, that's one of the most intense feelings that I've ever had in a video game. Like, I could mess this entire thing up if I mess it up right now.
That's what I'm saying. I love it. I love that it's all kind of crumbled out. Ace Chemical, and who's like what's the worst thing that could be on Bruce's mind right now? Well, it's the Joker. Which again, the whole idea of the Joker being so one, it's kind of interesting. There's the White Knight Beyond story, the Batman Beyond kind of sequel to the White Knight story, kind of has like a version of this where we have kind of like essentially we have the Joker kind of like used like he is in this game. And this is have a lot of fun Joker dialogue. It's so dark and also so mocking, and just I love when you factor in that Batman. This whole thing, Batman's a character who internalizes everything, and we kind of teed it up at the tail end of Arkham City, and it's like the whole reason to really go into Arkham Knight, and the intrigue is like Batman has lost his other half. This character that, for better or for worse, defines him. He's the other side of his coin. He's very integral to who he is, and it's always I always go back to that Scott Snyder thing. It's only in like the comic too. I don't think it's in the it's not in the trade version of the Death of the Family.
Yep.
After the Joker scene, he falls to his demise for the umpteenth time. Batman, he basically says like one of the reasons he never killed the Joker is he's afraid that Gotham would send him something worse in his place. So it's the idea of just kind of like the whole power vacuum thing with the Joker, and it's like his own doubts, his own inner monologue is kind of filtered through the Joker, but in some part it's because he misses him and he's guilty over what happened to him. But the other side of it, it's like
He doesn't
that
know who he is without him.
it's that need to be whole. It's the blood thing that we have in the game, and it's the fear toxin, which again, ultimately, in hindsight, it should have just been the fear toxin and his guilt and his feelings over the Joker versus him actually, being infected with Joker blood. But it's so that ultimately feels like which it's so interesting too, because that was like always like the Batman Triumphant. We were going to have the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow would I forget which iteration. I think it was Triumphant. We had like the thing where we potentially would have brought back Nicholson Joker or some variation of Nicholson Joker with the
Right,
the
as
fear
a fear
toxin
toxin.
as a way of kind of exploring that. So this idea is really good in terms of how to bring the Joker back in a way that doesn't underwrite the death, and it does make sense, and also allows us to give voice to how Batman's processing his grief for the emotionally closed off character that he is, and just how uneasy he feels. And again, it also adds that great finality to this character is approaching an end. By at the very start of this story, he knows he's reaching the end because of the whole blood ticking clock of the Joker. So the Joker is leading to the demise of Batman one way or another, and he knows it's the end tonight. Ends on Halloween, which is a great idea too, by the way.
Yep.
So all that's working really well. Just the blood plot is where things get messy. Because I can't even. Yeah, go on.
Well, yeah, it's weird because it sounds like a typical thing in a comic book plot. Oh
Yeah.
no, the people that Joker is infected with his blood are turning into the Joker. But
Yeah.
in practice, is like, what is the Joker like an STD or something? Like, what are we doing here?
Well, what's also kind of one of the wonky things done with the Joker, it's like, okay, Batman's affected with the Joker blood, and somehow Batman, through having the Joker in his head, he's able to find out what happened to Jason with the Joker. It's like okay, you get the qualities of the Joker. It's not like Assassin's Creed where like you have access to the memories or a person's like bodily fluids or whatever. But
well, remember, no, he was sent the tape though, Rohit. That's not him like seeing what happened with the Joker. He
Joker's
watched
tape.
that tape. At the very okay, so here's something really cool. So at the very end of the Jason Todd stuff, which by the way, I want to highlight is I know everyone poo-poos the game in certain regards, like the Batmobile thing, the Arkham Knight thing. With the Arkham Knight, you have Jason. It always bothers me that the Jason Todd stuff that really works in this game gets poo-pooed, where he is I love the flashback structure in this game. I really do. I love everything about it. And if we're gonna do Jason Todd, this is a way to do it. I really well, at the end of it, he says, this is what happens when you drag people into our crazy game. One, it's kind of a meta line, the whole crazy game thing, given the Arkham games. It's kind of funny that the Joker gets to kind of make that somewhat meta joke. Secondly, is the fact that we kind of built it up, too, or when Batman's kind of hallucinating this, when we see the Killing Joke thing, at the end, it's like written on the wall. Like, that's not to say that he actually did that when she was... I mean, he could have, for all we know, but I'm saying I like that's a little ambiguous. It might just be him thinking about Jason via the Oracle, kind of the barber, crippling. So I don't know. I'm loving all that. So that just worked tremendously well, and I'm with Jacob in the comments here. He says, it does give us in the asylum. So the blood infected people, I don't mind that we had people who, they were like the hospital errors and they're the ones who weren't safe. Because on one level, that does make sense to me, at least in terms of like people being infected by the Joker's blood. But then two problems come from this. Problem one, Joker's blood was a death sentence. It wasn't a mutation. It was a death sentence. The idea his blood is killing people. It wasn't going to turn them into him. It was just going to kill them. They might like look like him towards the end, but, it's death. It's not transformation. But more so, the problem that I can't wrap my mind around is it really bothers me that Batman, he drinks the cure. And even though it's only like half the cure, I mean, that like the idea was like, he drank half the cure and he was going to give Joker like the other half. So that should have been like literally just the cure. And then the presumption is that he basically did like a blood transfusion or something that cured all the other people in Gotham. So if he's still affected by that, that means all those other people in Gotham, they're goners who got the blood transfusion. So it really retroactively hurts that story. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, honestly, I think if they wanted to have like Batman hallucinate about the Joker, there should have been another way. And I think,
well, no, they already had the other way. It's Joker's on his mind. He has the fear toxin. You don't need anything beyond that.
Well, I don't know. I feel like the problem is though it does. Even though it's weird and it's not really doesn't even make any sense, it's one of those things where it works despite its execution. Like Mark Hamill being there with you as you are fighting crime, literally interacting with you and mocking the villains that you fight and giving you advice, good or bad, and just hamming it up while you're trying to save the city, while your character is literally going crazy and literally could be the greatest threat to this city after you do. It works. That whole thing worked. Like the story and how it happens, you're right. It's totally it's stupid and
that's the thing. Like,
it just doesn't really make any
Lazerdude,
sense.
like,
but
well, that's the thing. So all the stuff you're saying that absolutely works with fear. With fear gas, you can have that. But on the flip side, though, I like the idea of a Batman turning into the Joker, and that's like a ticking clock that he has to deal with. But the problem is, it just doesn't gel with how the cure thing worked in the last game.
Honestly, here's the thing I think about it. So like, I think the issue I have with the fear gas idea would be that it would kind of take like, considering what happened the first game, like Batman through just sheer freaking will was able to muscle through however much fear toxin was like pumped through the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like if that, like, Like what? Did the Scarecrow just made a better version or put
Well,
him
no,
with,
that they say that in the game. He made this is the
No,
best version of fear toxin. It even doesn't.
it,
They
it,
don't
it
even need
might
a
be, but
gas mask for it.
I feel like this it can't just be the fear toxin itself. Like, I like that Batman is physically, mentally turning into the Joker.
Yeah, I mean,
And that
that's
is
cool.
something that is not predicated on anything else. That is something that is biologically happening to his mind.
Yeah.
And that it makes the stakes that much more higher. Like
Mhm.
Batman wouldn't think, "Oh no, my greatest fear is I'll turn into the Joker one day." That's not something that he's actually
The fear is
afraid that's going
intimate.
to
Is
happen.
intimate.
But
He's
with
that.
this blood happening, that is his greatest fear. That would be his greatest fear. That the Joker would not only come back, but come back with all the skill and mindset of Batman.
Mhm.
honestly, I now just thought of this. I think the best way, if you didn't have like the whole blood thing and brought in the other people that were impacted by the whole blood transfusion become the Joker, when Batman's taken captive by Harley and Harley Quinn's revenge, that would have been the best opportunity to, maybe you don't even reveal it, but maybe down the like in Arkham Knight, you find out that like Harley Quinn like messed with Batman's like genes or whatever and put something in him that would eventually cause him to become the Joker, and that's her revenge at Batman. Like, you kill my love, I'm gonna.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then that puts the story in a DLC, which is not
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
necessarily
that's
going to-
Walter had to go about a different way, mind you. But yeah, if you maybe worked the DLC instead of doing his DLC into a somewhere like either maybe into
But
this
what if you
game
just never
itself.
played the DLC and then you just play this
Well,
game?
I'm
And you're
saying,
like,
what
wait,
if
what
instead
happened?
of DLC, what if you actually put it here as like a flashback in this game, like versus DLC? I guess is what I'm saying.
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Well, it's all
Personally,
hypothetical
I
anyway. I'm
think
saying we
even
would,
though it's problematic, all you
Mhm.
need to say is that the cure that they made cured the blood disease, but not necessarily the mental effects that what happened to the Joker when he was originally dipped in the acid.
Well, that's fair. Maybe it stopped the death, but not like any other side effects. I mean, look, that's a fair point, but they could have put maybe a bit of a finer point in the writing on that one, at the very least, if they were going to go that route. Which, I mean, it seems like they kind of did, but they really didn't explain it that well. Like, yeah, because they don't even spell out the whole like, well, he just like, drank half of it, so that's anyway. You might be on the laser. Seriously, you might be on to something there. You might actually have a really good point there. But I'm with you. I like what we have. I just wish it gelled a little better in hindsight. But regardless,
Well, there's a
taking what
lot
we
of
have,
things. There's a lot of things in this game that make you go, "Wait, what?" Like,
yeah.
Scarecrow wants to pump fear all over Gotham. Everybody's gone.
Well,
Everybody's
it went from
left.
6.3 million to like 1,000 people.
Yeah, and they
Oh,
were
so
somehow able to evacuate in like short notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's one thing, and I know it's just another excuse to get Gotham empty as as quickly as possible, so you can drive the Batmobile around without having to worry about running over a mother and her toddler. But it still is like, oh, what? The city's empty? Okay, that's okay. We've had okay, and then there's on top of that, then there's the whole Arkham Knight stuff, which we're all like, oh, so we're not pretending this is Jason Todd. But he is definitely Jason Todd? Okay. And it's not like these are, like, necessarily, like, game-breaking things, but then when you get to, like, Riddler has racetrack puzzles for me?
Already built
What?
around the city.
Yeah. Like, what? What are we doing here? There's just a lot of things in this game that is just like, okay.
There should have been a tie-in game where Riddler, in his childhood, really grew like had a dad that's really into NASCAR, and like the dad was so abusive to him. So
I
in
can
his
make a better
mind,
race.
yeah, he's internalized that trauma and has projected it onto these like really difficult races.
There's the thing. We should have used the obscure Batman villain Gearhead, and we should have had him build all the racing
You
themes.
know what? That would have worked. I would have
Yeah.
totally been up for a guy who challenges you to a race and like destroys everything around him so you try to stop him or something.
Yeah.
And it would have been better than some of these side missions because I don't know when you want to tackle it, but let's just say some of these side missions are not great.
Well, I'll tell you what, like, real quick before we get tackled, we'll bullet point the side quest. But before we do, I want to mention one of the best Kevin Conroy performance moments in the game.
Sure.
I was found it so chilling and awesome. Like when we have so we're in the airship, and we have him starting to be affected by it, and we have him confronting the Scarecrow, and maybe it's already happened. So when he's saying that's Conroy blending into the Mark Hamill Joker. Him doing that, and then we have the moment where we have the Joker pushing him to fire the gun. It's this trippy moment, a billion Jokers and Batman holding a gun. It's oh man, these are. That's what I'm saying. That's why I can't underwrite the value in having a Batman who has the ticking clock. If he is becoming the Joker, and he's the fear tag is magnifying his dilemma he's dealing with already, and just seeing Batman come unglued like that is oh god, it's like that brief moment we had in Arkham Asylum where he says, "Cut me free." It's we're there
see
now.
The cracks starting to happen.
So that's great. So the side quests are interesting in that one, there's far too many of them. Ultimately, when we really look at it here, there's way too many. Plus the DLC, we also got to break down briefly. But let's just say the overall, for the majority of the side quests, I do like the theme of legacy and finality to them. If we're closing up shop, we are kind of he's bringing a lot of these guys in for the last time, and they're also they're saying something about the history of Batman and kind of what he's all about. So I respect that, but some were fared better than others. So here's one that's actually one side quest you do need because it's a big goodbye. We need the Penguin side quest, not for the Penguin, but more for the Nightwing part of the Penguin stuff.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird, by the way. A lot of people have cited the lack of Dini for this one, but it's unclear because Nightwing was DLC in the in the Arkham games already, so it's unclear how much of this was kind of a. And again, Dini didn't have purview over the DLC anyway, so I don't think it really matters. But Nightwing not being tied to Barbara. Instead, we had Tim Drake and Barbara. And I think the reason we tied Tim Drake to Barbara was because, it's we want to connect the whole Robin thing. So that's why we need, Tim Drake's going to be more valuable to our story here than Nightwing would be.
Yeah, it does.
Because we've established them.
What?
Yeah, because we've established him. He's in the main story of Arkham City. It's a cameo, mind you, but he's been established. So it feels okay, well, we have the old Robin and the current Robin, and Tim Drake and Jason Todd have actually been linked because the lack of Jason Todd.
Feel like Barbara is being passed around from guy to guy to whatever it suits the story?
Yeah, because it's because we have Dick Grayson, we have Tim Drake in Arkham Knight, we have Bruce Wayne to a certain extent in the DCU, and the Killing Joke. We have Jason Todd and Batman 3 Jokers, and then if you go outside the Batman Robins, there's Luke
Fox. There's the Luke Fox.
Just look, you can't just be and now these characters are together because it makes emotional stakes higher or whatever. Just it's I don't know. It just
I've always been just pair them up with one person and leave it that way. That's always been my mentality with that kind of thing. But he
belongs with Nightwing. End of story.
Yeah, but again,
Starfire belongs with Nightwing. But I don't want the Dick Bass fans at my throat. So,
so you're saying you don't want her with Nightwing?
I mean, I prefer Dick Grayson with Starfire, but
look, that's a fair look. That's a fair alternative.
This should be a debate topic. This should be a debate topic.
Well, that's the thing, because there's a good argument for the point. Okay, the point being though, it just feels like it was kind of a thing where we're trying to connect the prominently story established kind of Robin in question if we're going to pair a relationship. I don't think they thought it through is what I'm getting at. We kind of threw in a relationship just for the heck of it, she's with a Robin, the wrong Robin, but she's with a Robin though.
Especially since they don't have one scene together.
Yeah, that doesn't help either.
The one criticism I don't know if you guys have heard this from other people. I haven't personally heard this, but I think criticism I have in retrospect for the Arkham games is that the Bat family does not have a prominent role, and I think with the fact that they show up at certain points, and I think the fact that the third game is so heavy upon the Bat family wanting to try to take care of Bruce pushing them away. It just doesn't resonate as well because for the first two games, it's so focused on Batman as a solo loner, and he has the Bat family, but he mainly is the kind of like a guy operating his own. And I think the whole stuff with like Barbara and Tim and all that, it's just like the third game feels like it's a sequel to a different continuity of Batman games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It
I
would have
think
been so amazing if there was a part in this game where you are having to fight multiple enemies on multiple fronts and you just cut back and forth between all the people. Like you have Batman fighting a bunch of bad guys, and the camera pans out, moves across the city, zooms in. Now you have Nightwing fighting somebody else in some other area, and as soon as you've beaten enough bad guys, zooms out, flies around the other part of the city, goes to Robin doing the exact same thing, and you were just like all moving in as a team. But you don't have that. Batman, anytime anybody else shows up in the story, is all right, thanks for the assist, goodbye.
So that's the conflict of the character, though. Right? A lot of people will say Batman works better when he's solo. If you look at the animated series, most of the time, then the other half of it, you have, Batman works great. We have like the whole Batman because we like the Bat family characters and we like seeing Batman work with them. But when you look at like kind of like the best Batman stories, traditionally are Batman one on one with the villains because it's about the dichotomy between those characters. So that's kind of the constant struggle with the character, which I think the games are kind of dealing with in terms of like we have a story that's very much in need of a Bat family, but we don't have
At
time for
least
them in
in
the other
this
games.
game, he has like a reason. Like he's
Yeah,
kind of trying to keep them away from himself for their own safety because he doesn't know what's going to happen to him.
yeah.
I think the fact is that this game has to focus a lot on the Bat family because Jason's evolved, and you
Yeah.
kind of have like the fallen son coming into this family that inadvertently or inevitably moved past him or beyond him. And I think this is the thing where it's like, for if it was Paul Dini or any other storyteller that has appreciation of the characters, I feel like these kind of considerations would come into play. But the fact that it doesn't appear to be in this case, a lot of the decisions are like, hey, let's have a cool moment. Like there's an emphasis on great moments in this story, but not an emphasis on great story threads or plots that are coherent and don't kind of like make the prior entries feel disjointed.
Yeah,
And I
like
think
it's really nice him telling Dick that he's proud of him and like for him to serve Bloodhaven. Like that's a really nice send off for those characters, But again, Lohala, we've never done anything with him before beyond that point.
yeah, honestly, like this game maybe would have been done better if it was just like only Robin, only Tim, and Barbara. Maybe even just Barbara. I think for if you could have paired the supporting cast to just Barbara, maybe Tim and Drake maybe Tim and Dick are elsewhere for a reason, and I think that would have emphasized the isolation that Bruce is feeling, and I think also like with how Barbara, she's also a character that's impacted by the Joker. I think she would have been such a good like counterpoint or contestation to what Jason's going through. It's like, yeah, I understand the trauma to a certain extent, and I feel like there's just with that a lost opportunity. Like this is the thing. I don't want to be too repetitive here. It just feels like there's certain opportunities that the developers could have gone with Jason. If the fact that Jason hasn't really been developed or set up, you could have done a lot of legwork in making him a more resonant character. And you just make these certain choices. And I feel like this third game, it has the issue of third entries going big, going broad, going epic, and it just comes off as bloated and just it's crushed under its own weight.
Yeah. So some other symptoms of that. So Two-Face. So the bank robs. So the idea is Two-Face is robbing banks. Which, by the way, banks in Gotham, they were really tailored towards the elite because this is like a really fancy bank with like multiple levels. It's like a more mall than bank. But Two-Face, he's robbing the bank, which is basically a callback to the tail end of the very end of Arkham Asylum, which the gag was the one of the few villains that we didn't see in that game. It was Two-Face, who's kind of a mainstay of Batman, and again, we shortchanged them. Like we still don't really have much to say about the two of them. It feels like again there
No.
should be more finality there than there is because given again you could always add another layer if it's another character Batman feels that he failed or etc. But we don't really.
Yeah, like maybe the uniqueness of the relationship, the fact that it's only the big difference in how things end between Batman and Two Face is like if Two Face knows that Batman's Bruce Wayne, like you'll have some interesting dialogue options. But that's the crazy thing about this is that for it being such a finality to Batman's world, like the way a lot of the relationships outside of maybe Catwoman to a certain extent just feel very perfunctory. I mean, there is a good ending for Mr. Freeze and Nora and all that stuff. But outside of that, really all the other characters, like there's not a sense of Bruce. There's such great effort for Bruce to kind of closing the chapters with the individual relationships he has with his supporting characters. I think the villains, especially with Batman villains being such one of the more prominent villains of rogues galleries in all of fiction, I feel like there could be a little bit more effort to make the endings for those relationships be a little bit more meaningful, a little bit more resonant, and the fact that he's worried about becoming the Joker. I think if certain characters may be aware of that or feel that Batman's off, that would have been so interesting to play on for those endings. But at this point, it just feels so, I don't
No,
want to say anticlimactic.
I will say, while you guys are definitely right that Two-Face kind of feels like he could have been any bank robbing character in this game, I will say at least I like that with the bank being like so loud and you're able to take out these guys no matter what and they won't hear you. I love that because it changes up the combat. You're usually having to be so careful and so stealthy, and now it's just like, hey, go all out. No one's gonna hear you. I do really just love that as it adds something unique and new and fun for the side missions, which honestly a lot of these side missions don't do.
Yeah. So speaking of missed opportunities, Hush.
Hush.
So we
Um,
teased. So basically, with Hush, we teased the unmasking ramifications, which we experienced by the very end of the game, which Hush finds out who Batman is, and we can't put him in lockup because he's gonna spill the beans. So Batman knows like that tonight's gonna be the end, so that's fine. But not for tonight. Like just lock him in like the Wayne Enterprises vault, and we'll deal with him in the morning, kind of thing. I like the Hush level, but just knowing that it's like an economized version, what Dini probably wanted to do, like just crammed in like three like two like kind of almost like a 3 minute level.
into a quick time event.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing, I mean, and I like
That's an
I like how
understatement.
this thing I like the sit again overall the main emphasis sorry my main point of this whole game is I like the cinematic quality to the way we're approaching the story. So I like that. Okay, we just have Bruce Wayne to get walking. And it's kind of a misdirect and everything. So the way that level starts and everything is great. But so the way we're telling that story is kind of cool. But again, there's no payoff, and it just goes by way too quick. It's not satisfying, especially
And
given like the awesome buildup, like a Kevin Conroy playing like an evil version of Bruce Wayne, kind of a thing, or a guy pretending to be Bruce Wayne. Like that's
yeah,
really interesting to me. We don't do anything with it.
yeah, it's like it would have been so good for Hush to have been like part of the duo of bad guys alongside Scarecrow because, like you said, there's the attacking both Bruce Wayne and Batman. But the fact is, Hush can, and this being the trilogy, an end of a trilogy, going back to the beginnings, having Thomas Elliot, bring back old childhood memories of Bruce,
Mm-hmm.
having that emotional connection, and the fact that Hush is being Bruce Wayne, then you can bring up the whole thing about like, well, where does Bruce Wayne end and where does Batman begin? That kind of classic identity dilemma. But it being the third game, maybe you have a final answer where it's like either one or both or neither. And then,
And you know what? Hush would allow too. Hush would allow you to appreciate the relationship Bruce had with his parents. In flashbacks, where basically it's like looking at how horrible Tommy Elliott's relationship was with his folks, and makes you appreciate the Waynes.
and also I feel like Hush being one of the main bad guys in this game, it would have certainly gotten a little bit of hype because as much as people don't, in retrospect, love the Hush storyline, it was like a big blockbuster Batman story that did well. They got a lot of hype, and now we have Hush 2 coming out sometime next year. I think if Paul Dini had the opportunity to really delve in, have an interest in psychology to Thomas Elliott, and I think part of it is that having Batman go up against someone that has his face, how does and like the way maybe Thomas Elliott acts as Bruce, it would have been so interesting to see with Thomas Elliott when he acts like Bruce, does he act in a way that's really accurate or false, or even somewhere where maybe Thomas Elliott is kind of just like parroting or even mocking the idea of a Bruce Wayne that's a philanthropist and hero. And I think those kind of situations where Batman's forced to really think about how he's perceived in Gotham City, though those are things, and then that kind of like dilemma or neurosis that's amplified by like some strong version, some different version of fear talking. Like they're Paul Dini's like whatever that version Arkham Knight is or Arkham 3, it just feels so much more fitting because it follows the ideal trilogy format where the third entry just kind of finalizes what the character is, like what's the defining moment, what makes the character resonate. And the third game was just like, let's just make a blockbuster game rather than a Batman game that really does right by the character.
Yeah. Let's see. So Azrael. So Azrael's kind of interesting in that the way we play it is kind of like, and again it's so fascinating because Paul Dini in the Adventure Continues comic for the new Batman Adventures, he did he had John Paul Valley. He basically showed what the DCAU take on John Paul Valley is, and actually it wasn't bad. It's different than this. This is a different Azrael. This isn't John Paul Valley. I'm just saying as an example of an Azrael, what it might have been. And here we have like an Azrael who wants to be the successor. He knows tonight's like the night Batman goes away, and then we reveal. And this is stuff that we had in like some of the supplemental comics, which was interesting too. Like he actually knew Aaron Cash. Like, there was interesting stuff with Michael Lane here. This take on Azrael, but again, we didn't really have a lot of time to explore. What we did explore was like, okay, so he's a member of the Order of Saint Dumas. He's like a sleeper agent. And again, you could read it as we're kind of building up the Jason Todd reveal here through Azrael, which I mean I kind of get. But it's kind of it's always a hard sell, even in the Nightfall story itself. It's hard to sell Batman would like approve of a stranger taking on the mantle of Batman, seeing him kind of consider it like it's weird.
Yeah, and man, with
he looks cool.
What was teased by Azrael in Arkham City, it's just like it's such a letdown with how that story. Because the thing is, the side mission becomes less about Batman dealing with like a potential apocalyptic, future for Gotham, and it's more like, all right, Azrael's just trying to get out of this, brainwashing, and Batman is just kind of there at the very end to like either he breaks a sword, if Azrael attacks, or Azrael just hands up the sword, and it's just like, okay, like this would be more fulfilling if I got to know more Azrael like throughout the course of the game, or even just in the prior game. But I don't know,
Yeah, it's kind of like a thing where you have to. It's almost like where you have to like take over a school project that your friend or like somebody else in your class started, but you haven't seen any of what their plans were to finish this project. But now you're on your own and you got to just do something with it, and so you just scribble down whatever makes sense to you, but it kind of just ends up with a lot of buildup and then a lot of nothing at the end. And that's kind of what Hush feels to me. Is what this feels to me. It's like there was buildup, but you didn't know what to do with it, and so you just let it fall.
Honestly, Arkham Hell would have been such a great title for the third game, and Azrael's apocalyptic prophecy of what happens to Gotham would have, paid off. But alas, Azrael is just either going to get revenge on the Order Saint Dema, or he just becomes another.
Okay, what did you guys try to do? Did you guys try to kill Batman, or were you just like, okay, no, I'm just gonna do the same thing?
No, I didn't try and kill Batman.
I didn't try to kill Batman because honestly, like either ending, it doesn't, it's not as satisfying. But at least in my mind, this is pure copium on my part. It's like, if in another alternate future or alternate timeline, maybe we could have seen Azrael like had an interesting story, whether even if it's a tie-in comic or whatever. But yeah, there's just a lot of threads from Arkham City that just get resolved in the least interesting way possible.
But that's not even the worst part about the side missions, because either they're characters that we're not really familiar with, like Blackfire, and I'm glad Professor Pig was in this game. I mean,
Well, by the way,
he
he was
was
represented very accurately, Professor Pig.
yes,
That
yeah,
full
he
green
was
mark
great,
on it. Yeah.
especially because I thought that he was Hush in Arkham City. I thought Professor Pig was who we're going to. So, but he's great, and like I'm familiar enough with the character that I appreciate him being there. But a lot of other people won't be. And honestly, unless you've read Grant Morrison's run, you're not going to be familiar with this character.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that the other side missions, like, are all just militia stuff. And militia, it's all boring. It's all typical clear the area stuff, and it just gets so repetitive, especially everything involving the Bat Tank.
So Deathstroke was the biggest letdown of all the side missions. Just the idea that one, you're wondering why did Deathstroke return? I mean, when we have the Arkham Knight, who's already the top dog militia guy, and then it's like okay, so Master Assassin, who already we've established the Arkham Origins thing, he's got a grudge with Batman. He returns only to have a tank battle with him. Like, that's dumb.
I have a giant tank.
Yeah, it's not
and,
great.
And Deathstroke goes out like a punk.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the way we
Absolutely.
take out Destry after all that, it's ridiculous. After like the awesome boss battle we have in Arkham Origins, it's really dumb.
Yeah, it feels like inadvertently vindictive on Rocksteady's part. The way Deathstroke ends, it feels like, because I bet there must be some developers that are really conscious of the fact that boss fights aren't really the best component of the Arkham games. Not to say the boss fights are bad, but it's like outside of a few select ones, like in Arkham City, the boss fights are not really something to write home about.
They're tough to get right, and occasionally they do. Mr. Freeze,
you have to
fantastic.
shoot in the back. The giant tanks you have to shoot in the back and sneak around them. Does that not feel like a Tom and Jerry routine where you have to like and then sneak up right behind them and shoot that one weak spot?
Yeah, it's just so. I see what you mean, because it's like, can tanks just not here, or the people operating tanks not here?
You're hiding in their blind spot.
It's like halfway through development, it's like, well, using the bat tank doesn't feel very stealthy. Let's just do this very bonkers way of doing stealth. And honestly, it would have been hilarious if the bat tank was able to have a grapple, and like you just have a bat tank on top of a
grapple
gargoyle
down and pull the tank up.
Oh man, you do a predator takedown with.
All right, so on the flip side,
yeah, sure, Joel.
Yeah, right. It'll drive up walls.
Yeah,
anyway, speaking of which, Man Bat.
You mean the jump scare that has had many people's pants darkened?
That's one way of putting it, but yes. So Man Bat again brings it all the way back to On Leather Wings, which is kind of neat. It's a jump scare for sure. But also, I like that it parallels Batman's fear of transformation into the Joker. So basically, someone transforming into a bat. So it's kind of a becoming. It's an unsubtle becoming, but still, it's kind of interesting.
And I especially like the way it's kind of, man, it's kind of weird to think about the Man-Bat mission in Arkham Knight because I recently, within the several months, paid Batman Gotham Knights, and the Man-Bat in there, just kind of the side-by-side comparison. Arkham Knight clearly makes use of the horror aspect of Man-Bat.
Yep.
Not just the creature design itself, but also even just like learning about, obviously we all know the origin of Man-Bat, but just for anyone that's not well versed in Batman lore, seeing kind of the way the story plays out and the the kind of the chilling, like I think for anyone that's not familiar with Batman lore, it does feel like a very tense experience, like learning about how this man becomes like a mutated creature.
Yeah, killed his wife too by accident. We imply she may or may not be alive, but I'm saying seemingly he's killed his wife.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like great little details in the game too. You have like moments like that where you're suggesting certain characters might be around. Then we have like things where as Batman's going mad. Jacob pointed this out earlier. You see like more Joker and like the signage and everything in the backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. And what really stands up for me for Man-Bat, just at least this is sort of be my part of this is when Batman takes like Langstrom takes Langstrom to the Gotham PD and he's locked up, and just his like horror and realizing what he's done, it breaks my heart to a certain extent seeing that play out, because it's like, oh, like this is just a man that's had just the worst things imaginable done, and he had no sense of seeing all that he's done just happen. He just kind of just fell prey to the worst animal instincts possible.
Yeah, no problem with Man-Bat. I like how sometimes he'll just be flying around if you're like in his area and you can just see him on your detective vision. It's just like, oh crap, there he is.
Yep. Let's see. So, Firefly. Now, Firefly is actually a really solid story as far as the side quest stuff goes, because that was like the whole. You kind of see the really cool. I can't claim credit for this. There's a really great guy who does. There's this really talented video essayist. I think it's Monty something. I think like Monty Xander or something. The point, this guy, he did the. If you type in like the Batman Arkham games followed by essay, he's like the result that comes up. Anyways, he pointed out the whole. We kind of explain why Bruce Wayne throwing money at things doesn't always work in Gotham. Because everyone's always like saying, "Well, why is he beating up on poor people when you can just throw money at it?" Where we see that even him throwing money at and getting rid of Arkham City and doing all this like relief effort stuff, it's like the fire department's like they're going to be defunded because he's giving money to the government, but the government isn't really like diverting the funds properly and everything. So basically, we have this fire chief does a corrupt act, but he's not a bad guy, and basically he's at least not intentionally.
It's weird that you throw him in with all the criminals, like the main bad guys.
I mean, he did endanger the lives of firefighters because
I know, but it's just like fires. If you were a cop walking around, you'd be like, "Oh yes, here's all the big villains of Gotham: Two-Face, Penguin, Riddler."
And Batman checks in on him though later on. Like you can check in on him though.
I'm just saying, it's throwing this like the small fry in with like the most hardened criminals is what it feels like.
But I mean, how do you feel? Because we have this and we have like the Ra's al Ghul thing later on. We have like the ethical questions with Batman here, like some of the stuff that he's doing. And I like that we raise the ethical questions like that though, where it's a no-win situation. But Batman again, he's gonna follow the law there, but he's seeing like it's a flawed Batman. He's seeing like the system's not perfect there. It's it's even though he did everything he could to kind of work that situation, it's still like lives are getting ruined. It's tragic. But that guy just didn't want his guys to starve,
I mean, you get yeah.
Anyway, so let's see. Okay, I guess so. The Riddler we should talk about too. So the Riddler, we save Catwoman. We get our Catwoman stuff. He has too many driving puzzles.
Way too many.
Yep.
And the ones that you have to like grapple down and then like repel your car are honestly the most mind-numbing to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, I do like the initial stuff though when you're helping Catwoman out here, like the bomb collar and everything. That's good. That's classic.
Although it doesn't feel like Catwoman should be captured by the Riddler.
No, you're right. That's it's a bit of a stretch. I mean, I will highlight this though. I love the Arkham version of Catwoman. Great Delisle's playing her. It's one of her best roles. So I love love her in this role no matter what she's doing. So it's cool to
Yeah.
see her. Okay, let's see. So we have the DLC. I really did love the DLC that we got on kind of the extended Batman Rogues. Like Mad Hatter, we get kind of an homage to the classic Scarecrow setup with the pop up book, which is kind of cool. We have sympathy for Killer Croc. Oddly enough, we see him in Iron Heights, and they mistreat him, and they mutate him by trying to basically use his regenerative kind of abilities, and we turned him into a big old Croc monster yet again.
Yeah, it's like the Killer Croc side mission. It just feels kind of like, oh, the most memorable component of that side mission is you and Nightwing just like fighting criminals and whatnot. But that's honestly the better version of that is the Penguin side mission.
No, you're right about that. I guess what I'm saying is, the thing with Croc though, I do like that we kind of fill in the blank of what the heck happened to Croc in the main story. If you didn't play the DLC, like, oh, that's why it looks so different. Joker said like you might want to duck Croc. We see like Croc is like basically Godzilla in pants. He's all right. So racial goals. Racial goal I want to talk about here were one. I like that we're kind of bringing closure to the whole Talia thing. I even like that in the GCPD we have like kind of the trophy room full of like the villain weapons and everything, and we see Talia's sword and it's like a moment of grieving for Batman. So it's kind of nice that we have a little bit of finality here with Nisa Al Ghul, which I mean, look, Nisa's thrown in. I get it. I'm impressed when we're able to work in Nisa when we work in both Al Ghul daughters.
I didn't know you could take the shotgun from the lockup until I was basically done the game.
I
That's
wish
my favorite weapon, and I didn't realize you could just walk up and take it the whole time.
It's pretty crazy, right?
for Talia
There was going to
Ghul,
be some mission to introduce it.
for Talia Ghul, I wish like for that moment, I kind of wish it played the way Bruce seeing Crime Alley and his parents passing, like that kind of the orchestral music. So something that it felt like he was able to grieve, but I felt like with how much Talia meant to him in Arkham City, you would feel like there would have been a little bit more oomph to his grief. At least directorially speaking, but.
Well, sure, but I mean, just primarily story-wise, the fact that he's dealing with Ra's, and again, Ra's was basically the author of all the pain in Arkham City next to the Joker. He orchestrated the whole thing, and just give it. I love giving Batman a choice. This was like one of the really great things with the game. I love that we had this moment where you could choose to save Ra's or let him die. Essentially, the whole Batman Begins thing. But I'm not going to kill you. But I don't have to save you. Essentially, this machine is keeping you alive. But again, you've kind of cheated death so many times using this. You're using like Lazarus chemicals, and it's not going to sustain you. So again, I like the choice, and I like more so the fact that it's like kind of putting him in a position that he had with the Joker at the end of Arkham City. That's what I like about it.
What's crazy to me now, just thinking about it, it's like considering Under the Red Hood, like the adaptation came out in 2010, just like 5 years before this game came out. It's kind of crazy that Rocksteady just didn't think just to like rip off that story for the third game, considering like why couldn't you just have Ra's be the main villain? If you want Jason Todd to be in this game, why not have Ra's be like the other villain? And I think just do like some loose adaptation of that story.
Yeah.
Especially since we already know Ra's, like he had a problem for in Arkham City, and elevating that character to be one of the big bads for the third game. Ra's is like one of the top 3 Batman villains. There could have been a lot done in terms of like the League of Shadows, and instead of just having like the generic armed militia, having the League of Shadows, League of Assassins, basically take over Gotham and all the grandiosity of Ra's al Ghul as a character, especially if we're to do stuff that like harkens back to the O'Neill, Adams, Ra's al Ghul stories. Again, another missed opportunity.
I do. Which ending do you? Let me ask you this: what would you guys pick, or at least what would you guys pick
I've
between that?
never
Have
played
you,
the DLC.
okay, well, have you seen what happens in the
No, I haven't
DLC?
watched anything. You really spoiled it for me. But no, that's okay.
Like, what about
I
you, Rohith?
I saved Raish.
Okay, I like that in either one. You kind of like there's a bit of comfort.
Well, I don't know. Sorry. I did not say like I basically I did not I
I
prevented
saved
Raish.
him by letting him die.
Yeah, that's sorry. That's kind of in my brain. No, it took me a moment.
Okay.
No, I let Nissa take over for the League of Assassins, and Raish just died like a mortal person.
How great is that moment though, where he says "proud of you"? You know, when he's in like the sick bay at the GCPD. I mean, that was a really, I really like that touch. Right, it's with the finale there. It's like that's the closest Batman's gonna get, where he didn't kill him, but he destroyed the thing that was keeping him alive. But again,
It was a very Batman Begins sense of morality right there, which is fitting considering who's the main bad in that movie.
and again, it's just also fitting, just given what he's going through with the Joker of it all there too. So with these kind of like he's enacting the same thing happened in City to some, at least what he thinks happened in City.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting. It's like a kind of a nice haunting detail. Okay, let's see. So Mr. Freeze, this is a nice send off for his character. We save Nora, but we have to unthaw her in the process, and it's a beautiful goodbye. The fact that he chooses to live out his last days with his wife. Just come what may, and it's again with the whole like Batman facing it. It's about facing an ending and just kind of like facing it on your own terms, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think honestly, of all the DLC, I think the Mr. Freeze part probably had the most significance to it, just in closing that loop.
And I think that's where Mr. Freeze kind of being an ally to Batman and that side mission, I think really worked well because you know going from that epic boss battle in Arkham City to where Batman, is able to more, not that he wasn't genuine, but able to more directly help out, Freeze and Nora, have whatever happy ending they could ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the kind of the falling snow, and it's one of the more visually potent, sequences in that game. And I think, even though Dini wasn't obviously was not involved in Arkham Knight, that felt like the most close to how Dini would write these characters.
It felt very Sub-Zero esque.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Okay, so that's pretty much all the. I think it's we briefly mentioned Deacon Blackfire, but you get the idea. So
He's a crazy priest.
there you go. So I guess getting back to some of the main plot stuff, we already mentioned how great the flashback structure is, and a little detail with that too. I love that when he's thinking about, Arkham and the torture that Jason endured, then Robin like walks in like right on cue, and this is all during like we go back to the movie studio, and we're basically dealing with all the other kind of like infected, kind of Jokerlings. Like Harley Quinn seeking the replacement and everything, and Henry Adams. By the way, I still love no matter what I love the idea that a Joker replacement sees superior and he's so in awe of it he kills himself. I love that so much.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Such a great
Like,
reveal too of like the green eyes on Batman. It's like okay, it's the cat's out of the bag.
it's not even just that he views Batman as the superior Joker. I feel like that's part of it, but I think it's also Joker finds that hilarious that Batman is going to become Joker.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Oh, that's a joke we just can't not tell. I got to go."
It's a killing joke.
Ah. By the way, it's really neat that each Joker infected person they all have like the way they did is they all have an aspect of the Joker's personality within them, which I thought was kind of neat. Like for example, my favorite one of the bunch that I think Jacob mentioned earlier, Johnny Charisma. One, One, he's kind of it's the fun like Vegas lounge act kind of singer thing. Two, he's voiced by Michael Rosenbaum, which is great for a myriad of reasons. One of which being he played a Joker in Batman Beyond. Well, he played two of them actually. He played Ghoul and he played Terminal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the fact that it switches to Mark Hamill singing that to you, it's
Yeah.
just like so poetic and everything. Although, does this mean Joker's he is 1/5 black or something?
What?
Sorry, the other guy just being like really mean and nasty. It didn't really feel like the Joker's
Well, it was
type
the
of mean
it
and
was the
nasty.
brutality of Joker. That's the
I
idea. It was
guess,
just
but it didn't feel sadistic enough for me. But everyone else, I get it. I like them.
all right. Well, it's not an exact science, Lazerdude.
Fair enough.
Anyway, let's see. So then again, it was a classic Batman moment here, where he again the flawed Batman, he locks Robin away, which basically seals his fate later with the Scarecrow. Like there's like a direct consequence to what he does there. Lies to Alfred's face. Well, not to his. He lies to him over the intercom, saying like, "Oh, yeah, no comm trouble." And Robin, I can see him though. He's right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I just
Yeah,
want
what do
to
you got?
quickly. This is a small thing. My favorite, like most of the items that you and gadgets that you get in this game, they're just a little bit. There's not too much that is an improvement on from Arkham City. And a lot of it's just a little bit of a variation or just the same thing, except for the voice box where you can make the other criminals voice come out and make the henchman do what you want. That
That's
to
really
me is
great.
a great addition.
That
I
and
love
I
it.
love this. I love the sonar mapping batarang. Like it scans the area for you. Like, I think that's really cool.
Mm.
Like he
Oh,
tosses the
also
batarang, and that.
Also, I like that the thugs that they've added in here, like it feels like I'm jumping ahead to the last game, but Arkham Origins, the stuff that they added kind of made the combat feel a little bit off, if only by a millisecond. But the stuff that they added in here, I like because it doesn't disrupt the flow. They added like medics that will help raise guys down that you've knocked down already. I can't even remember some of the other ones, but it felt like it added new things that you have to avoid into combat, but without necessarily breaking up the flow. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
All right. So main plot wise, I want to mention a few things here, and then we'll get close to our wrap up here. I So Scarecrow's plot, the idea that he's been funded by Simon Stagg, which is kind of I like that we did build like the greater DC universe within this game, and again we did other stuff with it later. We're not going to talk about, but the stuff was done. Simon Stagg, he's funded him basically trying to make a profit off of the fear toxin, and by proxy of Simon Stagg, we get the cool airships and blimps that are classic to Batman, especially in the animated series. And basically we get the cloudburst dispersal method, which is like the big, plume, the big mushroom cloud plume of fear toxin.
hmm
Yeah.
It was cool getting the airships, right, guys?
yes, we got the blimps.
Yeah. Really,
Got the blimps.
you're not thrilled about the blimps?
Yeah, I mean
What?
the blimps are cool. I just feel like it's like I think for me, not to say I didn't enjoy doing like stuff in the blimps. I just think back to the fact that like there's the one sequence you have to basically move crates around, and it's like, oh, that's just like I mean, it just felt kind of like in certain games where it's like, okay, you're kind of getting the action gameplay, and there's like a sequence where it's like you just have to move stuff around,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just kind of okay. This is just kind of like eating up time. I want to get back to the fighting
Fair point.
and health.
That's fair. All right, so Ivy has an interesting role in this game. She's what we use to combat, the to save Gotham's plant life, she basically has created like a spore that would combat the fear toxin, and we have like the big haunting, like the nature always wins line, and she basically sacrifices herself to save everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice turn for her, her actually finding some humanity in her last moments. Like that's cool.
Be one of the first times Ivy started to turn good. I feel like in modern times you're like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have the one person who wants to save the world and plant life be a bad guy. Maybe we shouldn't have that. So let's make her more of an anti-hero, maybe kind of a softer villain than what she was. I think it was one of the early times of that.
Yeah,
I think for me, the one thing that felt like it was a good moment, but considering the relationship honestly, if Dee Dee was involved, there would have been some level of finality and with like for Poison Ivy with Harley Quinn involved. And the fact that Harley Quinn isn't involved in the finality or ending for Poison Ivy, just like it's good, but man, it could be so great. But I think that this is the kind of thing where it's like with what issues the game has, this is one of the better highlights story wise for this game. So also I like the like the line about like nature and whatnot, especially as it relates to Batman's kind of deteriorating mind.
yeah. Nature always wins, which again is kind of to Batman's crusade period, but also just the current state, current struggle that he's dealing with. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. So again, we've defeated the Cloudburster, and then we have like the big tunnel chase. Now the tunnel chase bothered me here because one is the most difficult level of the game, at least for me. Uh, you know, uh, you go down there, have like all the Arkham Knight with the giant like drill tank thing, and we destroy the Batmobile only to get like the prototype Batmobile like 5 minutes later, which is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
We're almost like, hey, we're free. No more pointless Batmobile missions. Hey, here's a new one I had in my pocket.
Yep. At the very least, it could have been like a cooler, different design or something, but they didn't have the budget for that. I'm sure.
Uh,
I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so we have our again Arkham Knight boss fight. The reveal of Jason Todd and the Red Hood and everything. It's weak because as for mentioned, we mentioned the reasons earlier. Jason Todd, he sounds a little whiny in the dialogue, like the whole "Don't touch me" or "Don't talk to me." And we it's like making it a predatory boss fight. It's just kind of like really, it's not a one-on-one. Look at under the Red Hood. You have an excellent one-on-one battle between the Red Hood and Batman. A very simple way of doing it. Just do the Deathstroke battle again with these two. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
yeah, I think the idea of having like a predator or a boss fight is an interesting one.
Yeah, but
It's
not
just
for this
turned
character.
into kind of dead shot, if I remember correctly. It turned into kind of like the dead shot mission in Arkham City, where you just have to stay out of his sight and then just grab him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, honestly, the Predator boss fight is just like this. The Red Hood boss fight is basically a lesser version of the Mister Freeze fight because at least Mister Freeze boss fight in Arkham City, it's like you had one way of taking on Mister Freeze and you had to adapt. And Red Hood, if he's worked under Batman and knows all his tricks and trades, I feel like you missed out on an opportunity to do this sort of similar thing with for this boss fight. But again, broken
Well, I've
record.
always thought that one of the I don't know. I don't think you could do it in this game, but I always thought there should be a game out there where you play as the hero and the villain. You're upgrading their stats and stuff to fight your way through the game, and then at the end you have to choose a side, and all their upgrades are going to be used against you.
That's a good
And
idea.
I thought that like this would almost fit in a game, but we would have to play as the Red Hood as well as Batman. And I don't think that you could tell that in this story, but I feel like that would be a really fun game to play as.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
sorry, that's kind of a tangent.
So basically, we get into our big end game here. After we save Jim Gordon, we have the elevator ride up, which it's kind of a nod to one of my favorite scenes in Dark Knight Rises, which is the Batman Gordon kind of reveal scene, where basically we show that he figured it out, and in this case he figured it out, and there was like the whole here can be anyone, even someone doing something as simple as putting a coat over the shoulders of a boy, showing the world hadn't ended yet, which I still think is beautiful. And I like that we kind of have a bit of like this here with Gordon basically saying that he knows. Again, he's like Batman apologizing for what happened with Barbara and offering some closure for him, not knowing that Gordon knows the truth and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that Barbara's alive, being that whole thing. And I love that Gordon had a plan here. And I love that he see me for a moment. My heart sank like no, we went the full over the edge. Like no, he's turned on him. No, but then just in that instant though, he shot him right in the armor plating. He's like, okay, thank God, he shot him right in the armor plating so he can save his daughter. Like yes, Gordon's never a turncoat. Excellent, love it. There's just my own fandom showing there. Anyway, yeah. So I just thought it was cool. Anyway, so then we get into our end game here. Where now Batman he surrenders himself to Scarecrow in order to save Robin and Gordon. Again, basically the people
And
that
we
he's
get
endangering
Batman
because of his
drugged into the asylum, just like he was in the Scarecrow vision from Arkham Asylum,
which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I do like the whole pageantry of Scarecrow having all the cameras on Batman and there's like the big screens as the whole world is seeing the unraveling of Batman. And I would say when I first played the game, I appreciate the cojones on the part of Rocksteady for having Batman be revealed as Bruce Wayne, although it's kind of at a certain extent undercut by the fact that we don't necessarily follow like what's the status quo like for Bruce Wayne when people know he's Batman, right? It's just like, all right, this is the end. People know he's Bruce Wayne. He's got to quote unquote die, metaphorically speaking.
And we did tee it up at the start, like Gordon narrates saying, "This is the death. This is the death of
this
Batman."
is the day the Batman died.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
here's the thing. What I do like about this whole sequence, and I've said that Scarecrow has been kind of like a lot of the moments in here have been like him being like, aha, this is my plan the whole time. And I've just been a whole lot of how. Like it's one of those things where I don't see how everything could have worked perfectly for him the whole time. However, I love this whole sequence. He gives Batman the fear toxin. Batman starts to get his worst fear, which is the Joker in control of his body, his madness taking over. And first, we think that Batman is now just killing all of his supervillains in his Joker car, which honestly is better than the Batmobile, because when you have that one thing that shoots a bajillion missiles, it's the coolest use of any car in this game. And then as it's slowly revealed, you're not killing your criminals, you're killing people that you care about. And
That was a
you've
chilling
truly
reveal
lost
too.
them. Yeah.
If like Alfred is trying to stop you, if you hear like a little warbling sound, that's Alfred trying to
Yeah.
like say, "No, don't do it." And he's killing
Master
everyone.
Bruce isn't here.
God, it's like still. I mean, Gordon like grabbing his ankle, just telling him like please don't do this. And it's like shh. And then I seriously, when I was playing the game for the first time, when Joker walks through that door, and this is kind of like in like the supplemental stuff too. Like Joker said, he wanted to see the Gotham on fire and everything, and it's kind of like a victory. So it's kind of like him getting everything he wanted in a sense. But it's like him walking out there. Again, this is the cinematic like aspect of this game, like fully delivering after we have a sequence like that, which is already like blowing my socks off. He walks out, and we have this great kind of like, this might be my finest work yet, which is a great kind of like meta call out of just like, yeah, this is it's kind of like Mark Hamill's finest hours, the Joker here, at least in the context of finality and everything. Here is like, wow, this is this is pretty amazing in scope with just in terms of the look of everything, is how terrible things have gone, like how bad it would be if the Joker, like if Batman became the Joker. And then this heartbreaking scene of Alfred, like, pleading with him, like, what would your father say? And it's everything. It's like, Master Bruce isn't here, Alfred. Like, oh boy, it's haunting. It's fantastic. And then
The only negative I can say about this is that it inspired The Man Who Laughs. That's really, at least that's what I've always assumed. It's
do you mean
like
the Batman
Batman
Who
turning
Laughs?
into the Joker. I mean, that's what this is. The Man Who Laughs, or the Batman Who Laughs. Yes, the
There you go.
Batman Who Laughs. It's like, yeah, that just totally ripped this off and just did it to its dumbest extreme.
Wait, you don't like the Batman Who Laughs?
It was too much. It's too much.
Well, no,
He's
let
taking
me
over
ask.
the multiverse now.
Here's my question for you. Okay, with the Batman Who Laughs, just the inception of the one issue, like, okay, so here's the creation of here's the origin for the character, and then like the 6 issue, like, okay, Scott Snyder doing something actually with the Batman Who Laughs, like in a vacuum, like if there only that, would you like the Batman Who Laughs?
I mean, I guess I would like it fine.
Like if you did,
but
like I'm because I'm with you, because I don't like the whole like turning into like this whole event of like all these multiverse of Batman trying to take over like that. That's going too far. But if we just kept it like purely like Batman Who Laughs, and then we have like a story that explores him for like 6 issues, is that good?
Sure.
All right.
I think it feels. Let me tell you why it kind of I kind of don't like it in the context of just itself. Uh, it's because it feels like a 14-year-old's like idea. It's like, oh man, if Batman became like the Joker, the whole world is doomed, man. All the Justice League wouldn't stand a chance. Nobody would stand a chance. He would like take it over, man. Nothing could stand against it. And it's like, come on, guys.
Well, with the
It's
Justice
like,
League thing, it's that Batman has contingencies and what he would absolutely enact them if he were the
yes,
Joker.
yeah, but
Batman Who Laughs is the Injustice Superman of Batman.
There you go.
yeah, sure.
No, I mean then both in like character idea and just overall impact upon care the overall mythos of the character, negatively speaking. But,
Anyway, but this moment here, like, it's really good. It's really impactful. And then when you come out and his eyes are now green and Scarecrow thinks he's dealing with Batman, and I can't remember what he says, is like, or how does fear taste? And he says, like, it's delicious or something. I can't remember. Oh, what's the exact line? Anyway, and then Scarecrow thinks, well, I'll give Batman another taste. But at that moment, the fear toxin isn't going into Batman anymore. It's going into the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
which makes sort of the last sequence with the Joker especially fitting.
And again, some people
yeah.
have drawn the parallel that again, it's like Batman does to some extent fear being forgotten because that means his legacy is amounted to nothing. And he's that, so it's again because again, Batman is, even if he's becoming the Joker, he's not literally becoming the Joker. He's becoming like a Batman, a Jokerized Batman. So it's still Batman in there, but again, he's thinking like the Joker. So with that, there's ambiguity there, but like whether he's like fully like just interpreting the psychology of the Joker and becoming him, or is it basically Batman melding so close to the Joker? It's basically his own thinking, just contextualized like similar to the Joker.
Well, I think it's more like he understands the Joker at that point. Like, he's now been mind melded with him. I always view it like this: a good joke or a bad joke, it doesn't matter. You will always remember it. You probably remember the worst joke that you've ever told. You probably remember the best joke that you have ever told. But nobody remembers the mediocre jokes. Nobody remembers the ones that don't matter. And that's the whole thing with the Joker. If he is forgotten, he didn't matter. The joke was nothing.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, I think that's the whole thing. And of course, on the Batman side of this, I think it's like him finally coming to the realization of who he is without the Joker. That's been kind of the question this whole time. And in the end, he realizes that he doesn't need the Joker. There's the final line that Joker says as he's put into that cage, the same cage in Batman's mind that he was in Arkham Asylum. When he's carted away, he says, "I need you." And Batman doesn't respond. He doesn't say anything. And that says it all because he doesn't need the Joker to be who he is.
It was very fitting, and again, I mentioned this way back when we did Arkham Asylum. I love that we kind of brought it full circle in this moment to the moment where Batman could have killed the Joker and stopped all of this by knocking him off that the iron dangling cells in the intensive treatment ward of Arkham. Like that, I love that we brought it back to that in terms of where this ends. Putting him in there. You know,
Yeah, no, it's
yeah,
the
it was
whole
just a yeah.
sequence is great. I love that nobody shows up to his funeral except for Harley, and even Harley, we hear in like a different cutscene, a different like a news report, she like marries the Riddler or something.
God, and it's the fact the Joker hates the Riddler. So that's even funnier. Yep. Anyway, so I love that again. It makes sense because if you're going to do a Scarecrow based game, and we're going to even have airships and everything, we have to have the line, especially for his kind of rounding out the whole trilogy of games. We have to have Batman say, "I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman," because that was like, and you know what? I'm going to say this. I don't think anyone else is ever going to like say it. He's never measured up to Kevin Conner's fantastic as he is. It's not even like a thing against his performance. It's like capturing lightning in a bottle sort of thing. Nothing will ever come close to just the exact moment and delivery of when he said that line in Nothing to Fear. You know,
Mm.
I don't know if you guys have that, but I do. I just love because that was like you had like the music kind of some of the score, but just like the way he says it. That's like him early on in that role too, just still just kind of growing into it, like him putting on the gruffness before the gruffness became him, and it's just like the way he just emphasized that. Still, this is like really cool, just him, it's like saying it to the Joker before he banishes him forever in the
Yeah.
dark recesses of his mind.
He's claiming who he is, and he doesn't need the Joker to know that anymore.
Yep. So Jason Todd comes back, gives him an assist, and we beat the Scarecrow. And I like this too because a lot of people point out, like Grant Morrison, for example, he's pointed out like Gordon is there in the beginning of the Batman comics. Well, more so he's at the tail end of Detective 27. Gordon it's very much a conversation between Bruce Wayne and Commissioner Gordon. So it feels fitting that in this moment, like he says, you were there from the beginning, Jim. Especially when he says beginning, he doesn't mean like the beginning of like him as bad. He means the beginning of like when his parents were murdered. Gordon was there on the scene. You've been there at the beginning, Jim. You should be. It's fitting you're here at the end. So it's like that's the last scene they really have together, and then we beat the Riddler after finding all those stupid trophies and everything. And
I looked up one YouTube video of like catching the Riddler first of someone who didn't do any side mission until he found every Riddler thing first.
that's
And
awesome.
Riddler is so pissed that you found him first.
God.
He's like, "What do you mean I'm like the first one here?" It's like,
So wait, does he actually say that? Does he actually say I'm the first one
something
here?
like that. Like he says, I
I
think
gotta
there
look
is a
into
little
that.
bit of
That's
different
awesome.
dialogue that him being caught first.
God, that's hysterical. Anyway, so I love that. I love the goodbye. Again, the now Cat one's also really nice too. Or there's some sadness
Yeah.
there. Like, wait, what do you mean? I'm not gonna see you again? Like, it's like this Gotham needs something more. Essentially, Gotham needs something more. Needs like it's a symbol that I can't be anymore. Something stronger.
Sorry, I just want to backtrack a little bit. Do we feel like Scarecrow getting hit with his own fear toxin is just repetitive? Every single time we beat Scarecrow, we hit him with his own fear gas.
Remind me, in Arkham Asylum, we didn't inject him with his own stuff there too, did we?
No,
Okay,
I don't think so.
not Arkham Asylum.
I know what you mean, though. I know you mean every other thing, like Batman Begins, where he doused him with
First
his
time
own
he
chemical.
beat Scarecrow in Batman the Animated Series, hit with his own fear gas. Batman Begins, hit with his own fear gas.
It's like one. To be fair, it's I'm sorry, I'm not trying to detract from your point, Lazy, because I do agree with you. But I'm just saying you do like once per though. It's like not all the time, all the time. It's just like okay, once in the first appearance of Batman the Animated Series, we doused him with his own chemical. In Batman Begins, we doused him with his own chemical. Sure.
I guess I was just thinking, it's like I think it kind of would have been more impactful if Scarecrow was terrified of Batman without the fear toxin.
And it feels like we were building to that, doesn't it? It feels like he was like getting more and more wigged out by like he's not affected by it. But again, here's something important though. The idea that we strip away again, Scarecrow wins essentially. He did the cloud dispersal, and he's Batman has he's been unmasked, he's been shown as man, as human, and but again, Batman won't give him like the scream, like the pathetic, quivering kind of like fear. He won't give in to the fear, and in doing so, and I've always loved this thing about Batman. If people, sorry, but the ending of this game and this moment, I love that Batman as a character over the years, and even through the Arkham games itself, you see he's becoming less and less an urban legend because it's like okay, Batman's like an actual guy, and that's the thing. It's a class thing that's gonna happen with the character, especially when he's been around for a while, even like years into it. Like people are gonna say, okay, so actually there is a bad guy. I love that at a certain point you have to wonder how does he get the street cred back, and it's usually like it's less the whole like does he exist. It's more like look at it's like building a legend of the amazing things that he's done. And so this is like rebuilding the Herculean myth.
Threatening to drive somebody's skull over with a car gets
So
you
yeah,
some
we
hits.
should talk about that too real quick. So the interrogations are really great because he's on edge after the death of the Joker and everything. So he's it's kind of like the whole thing after Jason Todd died in the comics. He was he was getting a little brutal before Tim Drake kind of brightened him up a bit. But he's we ramp up the interrogations big time, and just that moment where he's like using the Batmobile to interrogate a guy. I love. He's like, "What's it called?" He's so ticked off while he's like threatening to drive the guy's driver. How scary
Good
was
thing
that?
you
When
can't
played it?
smell video games because there would have been so much crap. There would just been just like pants.
Did it
filled
shock you when you were playing though that he was able like he got that that menacing during the interrogation?
I don't know, because like I don't know, because I look back to Arkham Origins where he dropped a guy onto a Christmas tree, and that's like kind of the same ballpark. But no, yeah, the car on the head is definitely the most dark we've seen him go.
It's the most that Batman will ever get to Jack Bauer 24 in most mediums. So no, that was a very noteworthy moment.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. So we enact the after Catwoman we enact the Nightfall Protocol, which again it's very fitting. Goes to the bat signal. He ditches the cowl and he returns home, fakes his death.
Calendar Man.
Calendar Man. Here's the thing. You're right. We should have gotten Calendar Man. But I think we might have an Easter egg of him. I don't recall. Do you?
So Calendar Man is there. You can
Yeah.
see somebody in the crowd watching as Wayne Manor explodes with the date sort of thing tattoos on his head.
Wait, are you being serious? Is he there?
Yeah, I'm there. Oh, are you talking about
Calendar Man, not you, Rohith. I know you're here.
Whoa, did we just unlock Rohit's secret identity?
No, seriously, Lazy, are you?
No, Calendar Man is at the end of the game. I'm surprised you didn't know about this. He's literally in the crowd of people.
Let's say I didn't know he was in the crowd. I knew he was in there. I didn't know he was. I knew we had I think we have another Easter egg of him in the game before we get there. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, but I don't know if he's anywhere else in Arkham Knight, 'Knight, 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 'K It would have been nice. Maybe he's. we got we got.
That's another
point
question too.
rules.
Dini might have done something with Calendar Man had had he been around because he did include him in the other game.
No, like Calendar Man was creepy, but you're Batman. I don't really know like what much he could do with a fight. I guess it was Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh man, it'd be funny if like he's at one random spot in the game, and if you don't spot him, he kills Robin.
Oh God. It's terrifying.
He's following you. He only appears like 3 or 4 times randomly on radar in the game, but if you don't recognize him, if you don't see him, he kills one of your sidekicks.
Okay, imagine this.
Be...
Okay, imagine they play it like the moment from Batman Widening Gyre, where it's like you forgot about him long enough, where it's like, okay, you do the game if you don't spot him, he just shows up and he says like you trick or treat and then like shoots Robin in the head, like right there he shows up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a thing where you thought I forgot him
Man,
long
I
enough.
don't want that in a game now. Like, there's this character stalking you, but you never know when he's there, and he only becomes visible a couple of random times.
No,
And
no,
if you don't
here's
pay
the weird.
attention close enough, he'll just look like a generic thug.
Okay, here's what we do. They're doing this Arkham Shadow game now, okay, which is basically taking like a low tier Batman villain or making him a big deal. What if we did like a whole Batman game full of like the no names, the low levels? Like we have we have Calendar Man, we have Ratcatcher, we have Crazy Quilt, and we have King Tut, and we got and of course got Condiment King.
Oh, God.
The
Oh no!
Lazerdude
Oh, is that the
nightmare.
secret word? Did I lose the
No,
points?
If
No.
Lazerdude is injected with fear toxin, he's imagining
No!
Condiment King.
No. It's
Not the
Damn
relish.
if King Tut is a bad guy in a Batman game, it needs to be called Batman Tomb Knight.
God.
You heard it here, folks.
Anyways,
Anyway, so again, Nightfall Protocol. It's I think ultimately it's kind of a perfect end to the very in terms of like we see Gotham's in pretty good shape. It's kind of a happy ending. Gordon again, weird shipping as it may be. Like Barbara and Tim are getting married. Gordon's he's going to a wedding. And we have this moment of like we have a mugging that's about to happen, kind of like the beginning of '89, and the criminals, the superstitious and cowardly lot, they look up, they're initially unimpressed, and we have Batman using fear, Batman or someone, whoever the new Batman is. Again, we now know it's absolutely Batman. But let's say we have Batman coming back using the fear toxin to terrify the criminals, which I think I like that choice because I like that he's using he's using Scarecrow's tool as like a way of regaining fear and kind of like legacy. Is Batman really becoming an idea and like a fear in criminals? Like it might be even targeted to specifically criminals for all we know.
Mm-hmm. Although I do kind of wonder, not to think too much of the logistics of it. It's like if he's trying to stop like criminals doing any crimes, like how do you not worry about fear toxin like seeping through to any like innocent civilians that are in the vicinity of criminals? Do you get what I mean?
That's what I mean. Like if somehow he could maybe target it, like to like if it's like a certain like an adrenaline response.
also young Sherlock Holmes and uses blow darts.
He uses batarangs that are laced with fear toxin.
Well, he's had batarangs that are laced with tranquilizer, so it is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. I kind of like it's a big epic ending where you see like all the reality shift and Batman looking terrifying like that. But has anything really changed? I mean, is he still gonna work with Gordon like he always did, or is he not?
I don't think he is.
But it's like, so he's still just gonna be Batman, just more alone, more secretive.
Well, remember the idea is that crime has decreased, but it's like every now and again people need a reminder of like to stay on the straight and narrow. So he's like a walking dent act of sorts,
Crime has decreased because every single thug has gotten their neck or ribs or has been electrocuted by the oncoming
Well,
Batmobile.
that's why it's easier for him. That's why he doesn't need to see Gordon
Well,
every like.
here's the thing: the estate for Bruce Wayne is got to be tied up in so much litigation, in regard for all the criminals that are filing civil suits.
Which again, Dini did play with that in Over the Edge, where we saw when they find
That's
out that
why
that
he
is him.
killed himself. Not because his identity was revealed, but he's like, oh my gosh, guys, I am going to be sued up the wazoo. I nearly ran over a guy's head. I have no leg to stand on. Let's fake my death. Come on, everybody, we gotta go.
No. Honestly, like, okay, the thing, I get that the interpretation, or now with what game has retroactive made it to be Bruce. That's at the end of Arkham Knight. I do kind of wish, and always, if there was a more ambiguous take on it, it's that it would have been cool if you could say saved Michael Lane. Maybe that would have been him, and that would have fulfilled like him being Batman and kind of being an ethereal force in a certain sense. The whole apocalyptic idea that could have been exemplified with how this Batman he looks like straight out of hell. But on the other end of it, it's like there is sort of a thematic neatness to the fact that Batman at the end goes back to being the most primal inspiration for his character, that being the Shadow, this like pulp inspired wraith of a figure that doesn't really feel human, but it's just he's not from the shadows, he's of the shadows. And I think that there's some kind of cool thematic bookend with that
And then he's
particular.
killed by Harley Quinn.
He may come back through DLC, whatever, or season.
I don't care. I just rather do the route of like the Star Wars sequels and just pretend they don't exist.
No, go to Rohit's point about Ezreal. Again, it is interesting though, because again, when you hear the title Arkham Knight, I mean, I know once we saw the character, it's not going to be as real, but I mean, just when you hear the title, I forget if the title was announced before or not, so I can't honestly remember like if I did how seriously I considered this with the whole knight kind of gimmick with the Order of Saint Dumas. I mean, it did stand to reason like Arkham Knight could shift into Azrael having a key role in that regard. So,
like the Knights Templar, the Crusades, all that
Yeah.
kind of
exactly that kind of thing. So I mean, in a sense, you could have like could have like worked it so he was ultimately the Arkham Knight, and basically your ending would have come to pass. I mean, it's a way of it's a way of looking at it potentially. Again, the whole game would have been different, but you know what I mean.
And considering the vibes of Azrael in Arkham City is probably the closest parallel in terms of the same evocative, horror like elements of it, was I think in the first game with the Arkham side mission, like taking pictures of the tombs and learning the history of Arkham. I think that kind of tonal equivalence would have made an interesting story beat for Azrael, whether it be Michael Lane or even John Paul Valley, to be the Arkham Knight and had that be connected with being like a victim of Arkham and getting tangled up with this Order Saint Dumas, and also with with this being the end of Batman, making references or utilizing stuff from the Nightfall story in the comics would have been a cool thing to make a story out of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's well. I want to mention this too, and then we'll wrap up. The thing I really like about the ending too is that for me, I really do feel the ending for Batman has to be he's he saved like him saving someone from a mugging in an alley. It does feel kind of like that is like the full circle thing you kind of want with like an end of Batman story. Like I've always said, like if you were to like kill off Batman, for example, it would be he has to be killed, like, saving that family in the alley. That's what he's got to do. Now, I'm not saying we do that here, obviously, but I'm just saying it's sort of like bringing it back to that moment and like a victory of some sort in that moment, in like his last moments, or at the very least, like as like a final note with the character. I think that's something that, again, the game the game gets mired in like the whole thing of like the two big things, the Batmobile and the Arkham Knight. But we have moments like that that really do feel like we did say something about the character in these games, and we put him in the city, but we still have kind of kept like with the fear gas, like an element of Arkham and all the stuff that he's kind of come to learn and experience through the game. So it has kind of put like a nice, it's something that's unique to these games, but also it's still paying tribute to the character, and showing like you know what he's all about, and again being kind of like this still part of like this definitive take on the character that like the games have been, again, like the whole Batman animated series for the PG-13 next gen crowd.
I think also to your point, Dragon, there's a neat thematic symmetry with Batman dying the way he was born, in a sense.
Mhm.
So
Oh yeah.
no, I can appreciate that kind. That wouldn't be my particular ending for Batman as a character on any particular medium, but I can respect sort of the um, parallels and just sort of the thematic, exclamation of Batman. And also, I think what's cool about that particular ending, and that's, I don't know if you would think to mention this or not, is that it's a simplicity to it where it's like Batman doesn't die in this big, grand, heroic sacrifice, but just a simple something that he could have solved, that he could have done without risking his life. He saved he prevented a mug. He saved a small little family.
Mhm.
But the way Batman operates as a character, no person or thing is big or small for him. He'll always put his all in, and that's what makes Batman such a compelling character. Is that he cares for everyone because he feels the loss and would not want anyone ever to have the misfortune of feeling that pain.
Exactly.
Well, I've always said, like, Batman never actually quits the game. Like, sometimes he adjusts to somebody else doing the main role, like in Batman Begins. But Batman is not a character that just says, "Oh, I'm getting too old for this. Guess I'm not doing this anymore." The
Well,
character will
You mean Batman
always
Beyond?
continue to quit. Well, that's why I say Batman, but he doesn't fully quit. He gets Terry, who does the work, and he continues to do the work. He continues the mission, but he stops because he knows he himself is not physically fit enough for the mission.
he
Absolutely.
still
But
he's still part of the life.
Mhm.
yeah, he's not like It's not
He
like
became
Terry's doing all
Alfred.
the Batman work and he's on vacation on a beach somewhere. Before Terry came along, he had nothing going on. He wanted to do the mission, he just couldn't without using a gun or being as cowardly as the criminals he wants to fight.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess just to kind of put a button on things here again. It's that endings are hard, kids, and you got to respect the efforts that go into them sometimes. And even if this wasn't like a perfect like a 10-point kind of landing. It was it's still something that gave people a lot to talk about for a long time, and it was still like something that was like we kept kind of increasing the quality of the games and the work that went into them, and even if the story didn't fully come together, it was still like it was still an event. It was still an adventure that definitely stuck with us. Like when we're playing it for the first time, because everyone was playing this game, everyone was very much glued to like what the heck is going to happen next. And while yes, there's too many tank battles, and Arkham Knight, big shocker, Jason Todd, it's it still has a lot of like unsung qualities. I like to think that we highlight here, and we actually gave it time of day versus just like griping about the Batmobile like 10,000 other people.
It has the best combat of the entire series. Nobody can take that away. It's the most fluid it's ever been. It's the crispest it's ever been. It's the most satisfying
The
it's
great
ever
performance
been.
by everybody involved. Like
Yeah,
Conroy, Jonathan Banks,
yeah,
Noble.
absolutely. No complaints with any of the voice acting. It has some really epic moments that Batman at that time had never been seen or put in, and it brings up interesting questions. It's just not 100% the story we wanted to see. It's not 100% perfect in the way it tells its own story. It has elements fighting against each other for attention and for it's a flawed copy, but it's not like if I'm ever like, oh, I'm in the mood for playing the Arkham games, I'm not like going to Asylum, going to City, playing Origins, and then just like, you know what, I'm done. I'm going through City Arkham Knight too. You know, I'm getting the whole experience. If I'm binging the games, I'm binging all of them. It's not terrible. It's just not as perfect as we would have wanted.
Sure.
And and if nothing else, both the Dark Knight trilogy and the Arkham. I mean, you could whether you want to include Origins on just the core Arkham trilogy.
Origins is supplemental. It's cool, but it's supplemental. So it's the
Yes.
Arkham trilogy.
Those respective trilogies and their respective mediums of film and video games, respectively, they are a benchmark and a watershed for the superhero genre and the respective mediums. I think there were superhero stuff before and after the respective trilogies, and I think if nothing else, those trilogies are going to have such a strong influence that it'll take many years for something else to come into play and usurp the strangle has on the culture, especially in the superhero space, for better
Let
or
me put
worse.
it this way. Arkham Knight would have been the greatest superhero game of its time if Arkham City and Arkham Asylum did not come out before it. I mean, it wouldn't have made sense, but you know what I mean.
I feel like with if Spider-Man 2018 came out, I would say it was the second in terms of
I said
the
at its
game.
time, like not
I
now.
no,
There's
at
been
its
enough.
time, no. I think for the writing quality for the issues that it would have been a game that is certainly would leave an indelible mark on anyone that would play that. If that was just on its own merits, but nonetheless, I think with where as much as people have their consternations about where the franchise has gone, with the Arkham VR, with which game and Arkham Shadows, people there is sort of talk about there's rumors about Rocksteady making a new Batman game, whether it's an Arkham or whatnot, but for the time being and for the remainder of our lives, the Arkham trilogy was a moment in time where we got to experience the world of Batman through Batman, and we've had memorable experiences, memorable discussions, memorable moments, and that's something that I will never not take for granted. You got to be Batman, and the fun thing about these games is that you'll always get to be Batman at any point in your life. So that's something.
Yep. It'd be the Batman
And
kids.
I'll say this: it ends the moments that it needs to satisfying. The end of Scarecrow is satisfying. The end of Joker is satisfying, and the end of Batman is satisfying. And while all the other stuff in the middle was of the game is a little bit wonky here and there, up and down, it is still a satisfying end when you complete the game. You're not like, well, this was just terrible. You do end satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. So I want to thank our viewers here. I want to thank the lovely folks in the comments because we had Jacob hosting things. We had Vengeance Conscience. Sorry we couldn't read all your comments, but we
A lot about John C. Riley in them. I don't get.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's see. Also, I want to. I don't think he's still around, but Lucas Green was here earlier, and it was on his birthday. So happy birthday, Lucas Green.
Hope this was a good enough birthday gift for you.
Yeah, hopefully we didn't put a damper on it. And yeah, so that's so I want to thank those folks for tuning in. Again, reminder, folks, we will be covering Arkham Origins, but in the appropriate holiday. So in December, we'll be talking about Arkham Origins at some point. So look forward to that. All right, and I guess lastly, in the immortal words of Calendar Man, Happy Halloween.
This is the end.
This is a day